We'll let the people know. We'll let the people know that I don't like the camera angles, that I have tinkered with the camera angles, toyed with the camera angles, bought different cameras to try to make it kind of feel like it's the way everybody else's amazing mass-produced, money-funded shows look.
Mm-hmm.
You're listening. You're not watching, you're listening, I hope. Don't like the camera angles. But the lights then are like, your light is in your camera shot. And if I do it any different way, it ends up looking worse than it does now as a whole. Which now you look like a kind lady sitting in a rocker. But there's sort of like a wide, you know how a wide lens picture will make this kind of curve? It's almost like you're kind of sunk in the middle and everything's coming forward. And that probably has to do, I would guess, so I'm sure someone in the comments can correct me, has to do with the lower side angle that's going on. But also these cameras they don't do too well from further away. The further away they get from you, the more they aren't as clear. Up close, like if you use this camera over like right here, like it's gorgeous. It's a headshot, really tight headshot. But then I couldn't look at you. Right, and you couldn't look at me because there'd be a camera. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyhow, how exciting is that? That's what I was thinking about, and part of why, I'm always a little stressed going into the show, a little nervous, and trying to be more forthright talking about that in the home when the stress level's there. So,
is it helping?
I think so. Mm-hmm. Self-awareness is good, and since I audibly or verbally process things. Like talking is how I feel what I think. And if I don't, then I don't know. Which I haven't disciplined myself to not.
I don't think I think it's atypical for a male brain to audibly process. Mm-hmm. So that's a little different. Usually the male brain processes quietly.
Well, I've discovered some joy in that. With the dog walks. And I've also discovered that smart noting, returning to ideas on paper and activating them, clarifying them, elaborating on them, that does a lot of process. But the dog walks have also just taught me that I talk out loud to myself. I talk out loud to myself. And so what I want to start doing is bringing you and the family into that conversation effectively, which means, again, I process by talking. So I'll tell you how I'm feeling so that I can understand how I'm feeling so I can manage it for the sake of the family dynamic, right? I can feel it. Sit down at the dinner table. Just so you all know, I'm hyper-adrenalized because I just walked away from a dog who has some barking issues. And I was steeled to have him bark at me. And that's how I feel still right now. And it's just saying that, it kind of just goes away a little bit. Yeah. So, discovering that with the dog, that's the whole conversation. That's all I want to talk about this morning is Aurelius. But there's so much more worth talking about, including your questions, Bible answers, and some of our just ponderings about life here on Stop the White Noise. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. Stop wallowing in the muck with those who have no hope. Today's show has a title that's been thought of ahead of time. Most people don't know that I just often make up titles afterwards or beforehand with very little thought into what they are going to connect to. I always hope they kind of connect. It's like kind of throwing a hook shot with a basketball. You're like, I could probably make this 1 out of 10 times.
Might as well try.
Might as well try. Got to put something out there. But I think Let Sleeping Dogs Lie is a nice thought to start our conversation with this morning, and that is the title of the show. So that came up this week. It has been super valuable to me, but I want to hear your thoughts on Let Sleeping Dogs Lie before I say much more.
To kind of give the background to that, we are a family of 7 people. Mm-hmm. We have multiple animals living inside our home, and then we also have the Hebron Collegium hen house.
Gap Year Bible School for Men in Rockford, Illinois. Semi-monastic boot camp for Christian living. Cowards and slackers need not apply. HebronCollegium.com.
Amen. And so, needless to say, we don't live in a tiny home, but it is a small home for how many living creatures are in our home.
Truth.
So, the overarching, like, emotion that a typical visitor would get is a little bit of overwhelm. Unless you are blessed with something called extroversion, where you get energy from other people and other creatures and interacting with them.
Overwhelm is about right, though. The animal impact in the home takes some getting used to.
Yeah. So
But there's a rabbit hopping around, so I don't know. You get used to it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And us being in the family, like, we didn't just one day adopt 5 kids. You know, they came one at a time and grew up and were spaced with God's design. And so for us, it was like just more of the same. Mm-hmm. And so we don't always notice how impactful it can be. I don't always notice how impactful it can be for other people. You have been blessed with a little bit more of a awareness of how.
Call that a blessing.
Well, I think so. I listened yesterday to Pastor Kuntz Dr. Kuntz gave a talk that was recorded on Brief History of Power called something about God's gifts.
Tradition of something God's gifts. I'll find it.
I should have looked that up before the show.
Okay.
But
it's the one I recommended last week.
Yeah, you did you recommend it to? Yes, you did, to all of our listeners and viewers.
I said if you don't listen to the show, you got to go listen to this lecture at least,
right?
Because it is so good. And let me just go ahead and pull it up here so that everyone can see. If you go to briefhistorypower.com, scroll down a little bit, you'll see it right there. Our Heritage of God's Gifts, episode number 121. Dr. Kuntz at the Return to Wittenberg conference, just knocking it out of the park.
Well, my point in bringing it up is, though Dr. Kuntz is talking specifically about the gift of children, the gift of life, essentially, something that the way that he speaks about it helped me to see how much everything is a gift, truly.
That was the goal. It really wasn't just about children. But then that's the thing, is that's how essential children are to the idea of life's a gift.
Right.
And if you take away children being a gift, then life won't be a gift. It just won't.
Exactly. So your ability to see the impact that other people, other creatures have on a space, I think that can be looked at as a gift. I mean, I think that, as Dr. Kuntz pointed out, the typical way of looking at things is through negative lens in our society. And so if we flip that and recognize, no, the Creator made me this way for a specific reason, on purpose, then we can see it as gift. So you have that gift. Sometimes I am not so aware.
You're not so keen.
No. I just get all excited about it and I caught up in the whirlwind of it all. God,
I'm so thankful for this dog.
What does this do to other people? What does this do to other creatures that come into our realm?
Right.
It overwhelms people. It overwhelms things. So we have a dog that gets overwhelmed, and recognizing, I mean, normally we all get overwhelmed. We had I don't want to say an episode. We had an experience last night where one of our family members, not you, got overwhelmed by the family. And talking through that and figuring out, whoa. Okay, why are you behaving this way? And what is truly at the root of it?
Right.
It took a while to unpack, but it essentially was, I got overwhelmed. And I don't know why suddenly was bothered by something that I'm not bothered by. Point being, our family lesson this week was that just because God has given it a pelt does not mean that it wants your hands all over that pelt constantly.
We have used the dog with too much petting.
We loved our dog into insanity.
Yeah, just a bit.
He's just insecure.
Into not having anywhere where he knows how surrender in the order is working in the home. Yeah. That's kind of complex talk there, but he...
Trust being surrender.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about this more today, but the dogs need to have someone to surrender to, mm-hmm. or be a bestial leader.
Right.
Those are his options.
Having him be the bestial leader was not working.
It was not so good. It's not so good. No. And then realizing that every single relationship in the home has to establish that, but that the trainer can mold that through mm-hmm. proximity. And so seeing how the creature impacts the space, right? Proximity mm-hmm. of space. That was the master class from, I'll say his name, local to Rockford 815, keep it real, Ben Austin. Mm-hmm. Dog
whisperer is what a lot of people like to say these days because of the
guru, man.
Well, his boss, who's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, Disney, something like that.
Something.
You can believe anything you watch on TV. I can't. I don't.
Caesar Milan, and he has trained him to essentially know the behavioral mm-hmm. psychology of dogs.
Yeah, dog brain.
Yeah,
dog brain.
So we get to pick his brain and learn from him.
In that 4.5 hour session in our home and in our street, the huge takeaway for me was this idea of creatures exchanging energy all the time when they're near each other, mm-hmm. whether they're aware of it or not, and how that energy does manipulate us into behavior patterns, that if you want to change the behavior pattern, you have to change how you're responding to the energy that you're receiving, mm-hmm. and be alpha enough to instead exude the energy you want to see coming back. And the dog's like a barometer for this. Like he's going to do what the alpha's doing.
Yeah, a really practical example of this is walking down the street of your neighborhood. A car comes towards you, mm-hmm. and you can either jump out of the way, or you can actually kind of walk a little bit out into the road. Not now, children don't do this, but
at home,
parents.
No. Professional dog guru whisperers
adults,
do this sometimes in front of you, and you see it and it works.
You kind of step a little bit out into the road and take up more space. And raise your hand, make eye contact with the driver, wave, smile, and have it be a greeting moment with that driver.
The beast, the driving thing. Yeah.
And you watch what happens. Immediately the driver slows down, mm-hmm. goes further from you, mm-hmm. and then continues on its way. But it's not this... no longer is their car something that's owning the road. Suddenly you have taken ownership of that space of the road.
That's really good. And you force the car to do animal things, like decrease distance between you mm-hmm. and it, moving to the side. So the dog will bark at you until you moved away from the dog, and then it will stop and see if you stop to challenge it, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it'll keep barking again after you've moved away, but the goal of the barking is to get you to move. And just that little movement away is a message to the dog about proximity. Mm-hmm. And so to have the car be when the dog sees that your space taking makes the car not take up more space, not come zooming faster, not continue to aggress forward, then the dog will begin to mimic your behavior, your emotions. And so you standing there confidently waiting for the car to pass by, taking up a little space, the dog will just sit beside you and not chase the car, which is one of the major problems Aurelius was having.
Right.
Yeah.
It reinforces his ability to trust you as well, because he sees, oh, look look at the honor that is given to my master by this
homeboy ain't afraid of the car.
This huge car that's terrifying. Okay, I can trust my master.
Yeah.
The other big beasts in the area do. So there we go.
Right. Yeah, that's about right.
So that was, so you had opened it with let sleeping dogs lie. So that means, with all of this, it's kind of the same saying that we apply to children. Don't wake a sleeping baby. You know, just if the animal is content, don't go into their space. Invite them into your space, but be respectful of their needs at that moment. So, him curled up on his little pillow is not an invitation for you to go lie down on his belly. There are times and places for that, but being aware of the needs of the other creatures in your home is key to harmony.
It's made the come command evidently
effortless.
his strongest behavior pattern. I mean, he will come. You say come, he comes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And all it took was not petting him.
I know, right?
Right. So it's not exactly that simple, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
Right? And so that learning space for me has been huge. But letting sleeping dogs lie too. Then well, I tried talking about this earlier with you, and I was going to save it for later. But because I'm not sure if I can say it well yet.
Okay.
I really don't know that I know this. Okay. But I think I get it. And we got this from Ben Austin. And that is, that the dog really only has two modes, but they're on a spectrum. So there's a pole. The dog's bipolar, right? And on one pole is sleep, and on the other pole is lunge forward with mouth open. That's the pole. And between these two poles, there are a bunch of other states, which you can learn to see which state he's in. Not so much like you're going to be able to categorize them all, but as you watch him go from alert to down on his own, he will go through 6 or 7 different things that he does every single time. He never just goes straight down unless you tell him to. He will have this state change thing. And that everything about dog management is controlling the state change by turning him down more. You turn him down. You don't want to turn your dog up unless you're going to go play catch. And you're going to turn your dog up, let him get worn out, right? Go on the walk. Okay, the dog's turned up, right? But otherwise, your job as alpha is just always to calm the dog down. And the more you calm the dog down, the more the dog's going to do whatever you want him to do. That is a powerful idea to me for my own benefit, because now what I have is this obstacle course of staying calm. Like my job is always just to calm down the person who's near me, not person, the dog. But I can then take that and walk out into our family and say, well, I'm not stopping. I'm just gonna calm everyone down. That's kind of my goal. So I'll just calm down, whatever that means. You know, are they already laughing? Great, they're calm. Let them be. You know, but to have that be a discipline of my own habit is just, you talk about gifts from Jesus. Hallelujah for that. That insight that I'm getting right now from this.
So as you are addressing the fear that the dog has had developed and then needs to have help with, you are also able to see that emotion reflected in you, or that you have the same struggle. And so one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And habits are formed by doing. So it's not willpower, it's repetition and proximity. And so having the dog in my proximity as a calmness barometer, again, and that I'm always kind of got my mind on where is his calm state, and I want him to be calmer, that compels me to take calmness, to feed it to him, right? And then take stock of my own calmness just as consistently. And then if it's really not calm, verbally processing it, writing it out in some way, Or one of the things Ben said, which I've done a couple times. This is so hard for me, and I don't know why. Take a couple deep breaths. And I remember the box 4 that he did it a little differently, but I loved box when I did it a couple years ago. It was my favorite of all. I messed with a bunch of different kind of breathing apps and whatever. It just is such a rounding out feel, and yet it's like reading the Bible. It's like, I ought to box right now, but I don't feel like it. It's so weird. But I've done that a couple times though and got pushed through it because I was like, I'm stressed. How about I just breathe?
Yeah. So box breathing is where you take 4 seconds to breathe in, breathe in for a count of 4, retain the breath for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and then rest for a count of 4 before breathing in again for a count of 4. And yeah, there are different ones that, depending on what you're trying to achieve.
It's like the 7 in and 2 out, then hold. There's a bunch of different kinds of things, but that one specifically, if I'm remembering right, lowers the heartbeat.
Yeah. Yep.
Brings it down. So that obstacle course, I continue to find just so valuable to my experience with you all now. And I can only hope that the learning curve maybe is a little less steep, but continues on an upward trajectory.
Yeah.
So, and, do you want to say any more about any of that?
Well, stewarding the earth is, it is like holding a mirror up in front of yourself. Anytime that you have to work on something that you cannot control. We cannot control the dog, but we can discipline the dog. We can
correct, I think is the word that they use now. Correction.
Yeah.
I like channel though. You channel him. Like he's got this thing. He's going to do one of 5 things.
That's kind of Star Warsy.
No, it's like diverting a river. You take the water and you channel it. Right? What do you do when you're washing dishes and you put it on your hand and you move it over there? Right? The water's doing what the water's going to do. You're just going to kind of make it do it over there. Right? And so that's what the dog training is.
And so often we think of training a dog as making him into a robot.
Yeah. That was my error that I repent of. Yeah. Couldn't see him as something other than a robot. Why is that? What is it about our AI society? And Screenland, Dream World, all this. I think this is very much a part of it. I don't think people 200 years ago thought dogs were robots. Treated them like robots.
No. Well, and the whole concept of dog psychology is very different. But
I think it's more humane, but I think it's the same principles that they would have had to use back then.
Yeah. Yeah, and being in a culture where you are an agricultural culture makes one, I believe, more attuned to or cued in to the psychology of natural things. Right. Whereas now what we are attuned to is robotics because our culture is computer oriented.
We're formed by robotic thinking. We're formed by machine thinking. We are trained to think in mechanical production, industrial oriented ways. Everything about man is more machine-like than it was.
Yeah. I mean, even the idea of a man needing to process, or a woman, a person needing to process their day is like, what are you getting a new database? What's happening?
Well, so yeah, that's exactly right. Because what is the word really? The word's rest.
Right.
That's what is really, and by
rest
that you don't mean
meditate.
You don't mean
biblical
sleep.
language would be to meditate on God's word.
Ponder.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, God's word and or God's creation without acting on it. Right.
Yeah.
You use the word attuned, and then I've been toying with like what is the best word for this, because there's sort of woo-woo, connected to a lot of things here. And yet it's interesting to me how the woo-woo words are right in a certain way, under God's creation. If we understand that God the Father is the creator of all things, that God the Son is the Redeemer, who is King and reigns as Lord now over us, ascended to highest heaven, returned the last day, that the Holy Spirit is the way he reigns by the word of God, inhabiting you to create trust in God in this whole place that he made, well then, you can kind of see why a witch's cat was called her familiar. The whole point was that cat and that witch were like in tune. They were attuned to each other. Well, why? Because they were familiar with each other. You know, you get familiar with your cat. You get to know what they are. So it's familiarization. It's attunement, right? But I really love this word keen. You're just keen. You're aware of what's going on with that animal. And that your keenness with the animal doesn't go away when you look away from the animal. It just immediately begins. It's the way you see now. Right, and that's the thing about my beloved Aurelius, is that's a keen animal himself.
Right,
he is keened into everything that's going on, and then I can learn what's going on from being familiar with him. Yeah, I love it. I love the word keen too. It's a good word, not a biblical word. Maybe it could be though. There's a lot of words in Proverbs that don't have good English. I will say that.
Okay.
These, one word in particular, I can't think of the actual Hebrew word right now, but it's a longer one. But it's always translated as sound wisdom.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
I'm not saying that one should be keen, but like, really, we can't get one word for this thing. We don't have enough words for wisdom that we can kind of at least try to have it have an edge. I think English has got enough words that we could find words, and so keen may be a good wisdom word. I'd have to look
it's
more into
odd
that.
because as I think about it, I'm like, oh, okay, so sound wisdom, that's really grounded wisdom. But I'm like, what wisdom isn't grounded? So what really are we getting at here?
So the Hebrew word, which I cannot remember the word itself, I do remember its distinction from just kind of wisdom. Like wisdom is closer to insight, sight. Yeah. But sound wisdom is action that works, right? Pragmatics is kind of that word, right? Like when you do, you're able to know that when you do this, this will happen. That's sound wisdom. But it's not sound wisdom. I mean, what is it? And I don't know, keen. I don't know if that works for that specifically or not. But when I say keen is not a biblical word, I don't know. Maybe it is. It's as biblical as any other translation of insight would be, organ, wisdom, prudence, right? That's the trick with translating texts like Hebrew, is you don't have perfect matches ever, really.
Right.
And then Hebrew's so rich that you end up losing something in translation, which you can lose any. That's any talk between people. So anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent there.
Yes, you can lose the meaning in communication. Absolutely.
You have something in mind?
Well, just thinking about, what, if we go back to dog training, like what does it mean for me to have a tight or loose leash? What does it mean for you to have a tight or loose leash? Until we take that time to actually physically show one another, okay, this is a loose leash, this is a tight leash, you could interpret that different ways.
Correct. And to some extent, that's okay. The dog can respond differently to the different leashes and the different people.
Mm-hmm.
But then the goal of the training would be that he would still always stay within the box of the primary trainer's habituation. Mm-hmm. Right? So it doesn't mean that the other trainers have to do it the same way. It means that he's not going to go out. Whatever he gets the majority training in, that's what his baseline's going to be.
Yeah.
And he'll default to that. And again, I'm just enjoying that. It's taking a lot of time. I'm not writing right now, but I just kind of really kicked off the Substack. But this Christmas week, I decided I'm just going to be dog and family this week and see how it goes, and really enjoying it. Finding our way. Got another adult in the house now with a driver's license and things.
Quote of the day. I don't know that I like having my driver's license because it means I'm never home.
That's some Amish wisdom right there. That's some Amish wisdom right there.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
The other bit of wisdom we learned this week is never allow a coupon to dictate your day's events.
All right. So we're going to pause the Aurelius is so important to the world talk and move into a good story. You got to tell that story.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it was what? All day? No. I'm thinking the DMV.
God be praised.
I'm thinking the DMV. Yeah. That was this week. I mean,
that was this week too. So our daughter who turned 18 decided because of COVID and the shutdowns and how awkward it was to get into classes during 2020, that she was just going to wait until she was 18 to get her driver's license. And we were thankful for that. I mean, it saved us a little bit of money as we didn't have to then pay for such an extensive driver's training course. You still had, in the state of Illinois, you still have to take a 6-hour class, but it's online and it's only like a handful of bucks instead of
it's effectively sensitivity training
full.
For the road. It is such a mediocre thing.
Yeah. So we, a friend of mine has a 16-year-old son who was going to get his license during Christmas break. And so we were like, hey, well, let's go together. We'll do it at the same time. This will be great. So she knew of a DMV that was kind of out in the country and therefore less busy than the one that would be in town here in Rockford. And we planned all the same to go right at opening. So we were going to be there 30 minutes before opening and then be there with all of our paperwork and ready to go right as they open so we wouldn't have to waste our whole day. Sound wisdom.
No, because that always works. But you're going to the DMV where there is no keenness at the DMV.
Man.
It is a keenness destroying facility. Like you sit there, you can just feel the social pressure of not getting to do what you need to do and not knowing how long it's going to be.
Yeah.
And just like that, you're in fact like in line to go to jail. But not, like you'll get out, but like you're in jail.
Yeah.
You're in jail until you get to the front of the desk. Like you're in probationary period. And there is
I definitely felt that.
If you have a magic scrying stone, you can like play Tetris or something.
Yeah. Well, or you can bring your Bible and do all of your readings.
What? That's so weird. What you doing reading your Bible out in the Publix?
Why do I keep losing the name of the reading schedule? What is it called again? I just wanted to say Hebron.
Yeah, you can
but
do
it's
that
not.
because
it's Horner method.
It's the Horner method, but it's the Hebron style. So
okay,
you call it the Hebron style.
Yeah, so I got all my chapters done.
That's good.
It was good. That was the good part of the day. But yeah, so one thing after another, I find that in my file folder of paperwork that we brought to prove that she can
be who she is in
the
state of Illinois,
sit behind a wheel with a test monitor and do this little tiny test for about 10 minutes. Like I did not have any of what it took to get her to the front of the line and to get
everything
her
was
driver's
wrong.
license. Yes.
Yeah.
So the night before we had learned that, proof of registration, that little piece of paper that proves, no, you can't just look at the stickers that are on the back of the vehicle. You have to have this extra piece of paper. Well, that for some reason isn't in our car. Like, why? I don't know. So big deal. No, not a big deal. Like I just went in.
Weird though. Did we ever
paid
figure out why?
$3. No, like I don't know.
Like you would think we would learn our lesson.
The only thing I can think is in our excitement to put the stickers on the car, because I was not
it could have been
the
me.
one that put the stickers on the car.
Throwing it away. I'm so like mechanical about that because I think they go in a packet and they get stuck together and it's set there and it's always there when you need it because otherwise it won't be there. So yeah, maybe.
So yeah, and I mean the whole scenario around getting those stickers had been kind of a frustrating scenario. But But anyhow, so you just go to the DMV and you tell them, I don't have my paper. And they say, okay, give me $3 and I'll print another one out for you on our little printer. Like, it's nothing special.
That was step one. But
so I did step one.
You weren't done.
Done.
No,
that. Got back in line with Chloe because I was able to get out of line
to go
do that and then get back in line. And then she goes to the front of the line and they're like, okay, so proof of residency. And she pulls out mail from a corporation because we didn't have medical bills for her. I mean, she's been healthy. We didn't have a bank statement because it's all online. She didn't have a pay stub because that too is all online. So we just didn't think about it. But anyhow, I had this other mail, whatever. And also, like, in the checklist of things that you're supposed to bring for the DMV, half of it is like a suggestion or just like they never check for it anyway. So I was like, well, whatever, this is official mail. It'll work. No, didn't work. So we had to go to the bank. God be praised, she has a bank account in her name. So we were able to get a statement printed out. But we did have to wait for the bank to open. So headed back to the DMV, and I noticed that I learned that day that this little parentheses with the bumpy line at the bottom and the exclamation mark, that's a flat tire.
Yes.
In an exclamation
in the car.
mark. With an exclamation mark.
Have we checked that again since you filled it
No,
up?
I haven't. I have to check that again. But that's a little flat tire warning.
Yes.
Oh, cool. So
cool.
So it was on. And yeah, if anything is wrong with the vehicle that you bring,
can't do it yet.
They won't let you take the test.
You won't let me take my driving test with a flat tire? What's wrong with you? Crazy Illinois.
So we pulled into a Midas on the way back to the DMV. And I explained, hey, she's getting her driver's license and we have a warning light. Can you please fill our tires? And would you know, they filled them, all of them, for free and
nice.
Sent us back on our way.
Yeah.
So we're headed down again to the DMV. But this time I noticed, whoa, we're kind of low on gas. Like, did I check anything this morning? So we pull in and get gas.
That was a nice sound.
Did you like
that
it? That was a
nice.
snort.
Yeah.
That was a snort.
Yeah.
So we get gas. It's all full. We're all ready. We then have to get another number to get in line. This time it's later in the day, so they're only allowing like 20 people into the DMV at a time. So we had to wait in our car for our group of numbers to be called. So we waited an hour. And then we got to go into the DMV and sit for another 45 minutes. And
my blood pressure is rising.
Then
I'm not angry. I'm just imagining the pain of the experience. Like I can feel it. I'm there with you, and I'm not happy.
So my philosophy in these scenarios is to just be very. It's like you put those blinders on an animal. Mm-hmm. Just be very blinder minded. Where I'm just doing this step at this moment. Okay, right now all I have to do is sit in my car and wait for an hour. So
all I have to do.
All I have to do.
Isn't it nice to live a life of luxury where I can just sit here for an hour in my car?
Right. And take note of all the other people sitting in their car and so the part that bothered me was that the car had to be running because it was like really, really cold that day.
It was a touch cold here for a couple of days. Yeah.
So I kept looking and I'm like, okay, well the gas is doing fine. The battery's fine. So we're fine. Like there's really nothing other than that little nagging be green in the back of my head that's telling me you've had your car running for a whole hour. What are you doing?
Don't listen to that religion.
Yeah. Anyhow.
These ain't worth the time.
So we get in and she had taken her online course and then had also done her permit. But somehow in the system, she had 2 different accounts. So they had to combine the accounts. No big deal. It takes 5 seconds. Unless you're a government worker and your lunch break falls in the middle of you creating this combined account. So we got to wait for the lunch break to end.
So long story short, sometime around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you come back to the house
from 7:30 to 2.
You come back to the house and I'm like, you're back. How's the driver? And you're like, she's not. We need something else. Yes. Which was what? I can't remember.
Proof of insurance.
Proof of insurance.
Because our insurance company, we are on an auto renew.
Yeah.
But this company, we've had several different car insurance companies, and this very specific one does not send you a card when they renew your insurance.
They do it via
email. They do it online, but if you are living a Luddite lifestyle, you miss it. And so you actually have to write on your own physical day planner when your cards are going to expire.
Did that email go to your email account? Do you know, as Midvale? It goes to mine?
It goes to yours. I actually don't know because it doesn't come to me.
I remember seeing them saying it was going to renew. I don't remember them saying, here are your new documents. And we had printed new documents.
You printed out that little, it's going to renew and this is how much it's going to cost it.
Okay.
So
together we can overcome this in the future.
I put it in my day planner.
Thank you.
It's
that's
there.
Helpful. That's
in
good.
May, I have a note with an asterisk.
Print
out insurance, car insurance.
That's valuable. So this isn't even the story you were going to tell, because the lesson of the story is not don't go to the DMV. It's the DMV is going to be what the DMV is. The lesson of the story really is.
The lesson.
Don't count your chickens.
Don't allow a coupon to dictate what your day will be.
Correct. Don't plan your life around
schedule.
A coupon. Yeah.
We got a coupon for glasses that promised 60% off frames and lenses for two pairs of glasses at a store, but it's expiring today. And today is a very busy day for me. So it had to be yesterday because I just discovered this coupon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to go yesterday to make this coupon worth something to me.
Earn some money by consuming things the right way.
Because we just got new prescriptions for all the kids, and we have 2 drivers, one in a permit state, one in a licensed state, who, prescription sunglasses is kind of a good thing for drivers who wear glasses. So we go and they are looking at the glasses and they find the pairs that they like, and we end up, in the end, when I came out of I'm in a place of prison, coma.
Here comes Santa Claus. Right?
Pretty much. I thought, I am not spending $500 on glasses for my children. I don't even wear a $500 pair of glasses.
Which to me, it blows my mind, given that this is what the coupon's supposed to not be.
After the coupon, after the all the numbers supposedly had been run, and I still was going to pay $500 for 2 pairs. No, 3. It was 3. It was 3 pairs of glasses. But break that down. It's still more money than my glasses cost.
Yeah, right. Super weird, because normally they get the insurance is pretty good. So
year,
you picked ones that were not covered by the insurance?
No, it was all covered by the insurance. It's just one did pick Coach brand glasses. Okay. Coach is a pretty high-end brand.
So that wasn't covered maybe. Maybe that was a big part of it.
It was more expensive. But last year they picked whatever glasses they liked off the shelf, and no kidding, one of them cost me 68 cents.
Yeah.
The other cost $8. So we went back to the same store. I have no idea. That's the thing. It was just like, this is ridiculous. I'm done. We're going home. So we go home. My daughter's driving.
This is a big moment for you. Like you didn't complete a task because you realized it wasn't worth your time.
That's almost a huge completed because I was like, I'm here. We've got these glasses.
That's what you do. That's why this was a big moment for you. Even though you probably could have found a way.
I was justifying it in my brain. I was like, okay, where is this money? Where can I take this money from? And I was like, there's no way I can tell my husband, oh, yeah, hon, we got a good deal. 60% off. We only spent $500.
I'd be like, what?
a fit.
I would have said, I don't think they ran the coupon right. This is what I would have said.
60% off? Buy one, get one free. Like there
Things
were all
are getting more
sorts of-
expensive, but our plan they did something wrong. There was something
weird.
missing in the way the stuff was run.
So,
pastor plan in the Missouri Synod, we don't get paid exorbitantly well, but our
medical needs tend to be cared for.
It's a good high deductible plan. I still have to pay the deductible, but for eye care, dental care, there's some good basic level.
But you're not going to be wearing Coach glasses, evidently, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we come home, my daughter's driving, and then she's telling me, I'm like, tell me again about that thing you learned in driver's training about tooting your horn to pedestrians. And she's explaining it to me. And then all of a sudden there's a pedestrian walking on the median with a crutch in the dark wearing black. Like, whoa. Super adrenalizing moment for us all, which then throws me into laughter, hysteria. And so we come home and we're just super giddy. Which didn't help the calm quest
the quest for me to see
puppy
calm.
And puppy master.
Yeah. Well, it was fine. I just couldn't join in it.
But that was the lesson of the day.
Yeah.
I wasted my afternoon sitting in a prison of sorts where they had my information and they're typing away in a computer over and over and over again. And they can't go forward and I can't go backward and I just am stuck. And it was like same emotion as at the DMV. I'm stuck here.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do, so I better just buckle up and settle in because this is where I am right now.
But you could have walked out sooner.
I guess I could have, yeah. Yeah, I guess I could have. Mm-hmm. And at the DMV, I could have said, you know what? I'm not doing this today. I'll come back another day.
Correct. It'll be there tomorrow. Oh, same horrible experience. We'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you could get all the right stuff and come back.
And it can take less time.
But you might not have known you needed the right stuff if you hadn't come back.
The thing about the DMV is we didn't know that she didn't have to take her written test again. For some reason, I felt like that was part of it. But no, she just had to do her driving test. So the whole time that I was like, maybe we should just come back. And she was like, but I'm ready. Like, I've studied and I'm so close.
Yeah.
Can we just... And so we tried and we did and we succeeded in the license. Whew, we succeeded.
Yay.
And the test was like the driving test was no big deal. It was not even a thing. The test was, can you get all of your little ducks in a row and present them at one time?
That's right. Can you obey? Can you do what we command that you do? It's kind of amazing. Bureaucracy at its finest. That's interesting. That does connect to this thought. It's a dog thought, but it's connected to the same idea. Something Ben said. You are either in control or being controlled. Mm-hmm. And that has a lot to do with the space that you're in. Again, so how the creature and the energy of the creature, human or otherwise, impacts this space, will either control you or you will control it based upon your sharing, claiming, and giving of the space. Right? Mm-hmm. Sharing meaning we're in the same place. Giving meaning I'm not where you are. Right? I've given that space to you. And then claiming means I'm where I am and you can't be here. Mm-hmm. And that this is dog think, big time. But I found it to be just really worth thinking about the DMV. You're in a space. There's a claim on every single inch of that space, including your psychology. And what you're supposed to do is pull out your phone and brainwash for a while.
Yep.
Yeah. And you are being controlled. That you have no control. And so the power, the regime, the beast, is going to make sure you know you are not in control. Mm-hmm. And over something that's ultimately pretty simple. It shows you government intrusion being a very powerful thing in American life for being a free country and all this stuff they mythologize us with.
Interestingly enough, like I didn't earn it, but I got more respect. What would that be? My respect for the DMV workers.
Oh, sure.
At this specific one, especially,
Yeah.
just went through the roof.
That's good.
I mean, their customer service, they are on all day long.
Yeah.
And the ones that helped me and allowed me to use the landline to call the insurance company.
Yeah, that's great.
And, gave me the fax number and looked up the phone number for my insurance company on their cell phones. Like, they did all sorts of things for me all day long.
Which is super amazing.
Helping other people and, having to deal with the truck drivers who are sitting there literally taking their tests, their written tests over and over and failing time and time again. And finally, telling them, hey, maybe take this booklet and study a little bit.
Right.
Before you take the last test, which you can't fail or you can't take again for another 3 months.
Wow.
So they're dealing with customer service all day and nobody wants to be there. None of their customers are happy.
No.
And even the kids who are going to take the tests and get their driver's license are scared out of their mind.
Yeah.
So Bob, who took Chloe out for her test, he was really cool. He was like, hey, don't be nervous. I just want you to know you're going to be fine. And then when she did finish her test and walk back in, he announced to the whole room, she passed. And you could just feel everybody's excitement level go up for her.
Yeah,
and then another person who had kind of watched us and witnessed all that we were going through, not the whole day, but part of the day, he came up and was like, wow, I don't know who's more proud, you or her. And at that moment, Chloe and I kind of stopped and looked at each other, and then we discussed on the way to the car, I don't know if it's pride or just that feeling of freedom, final freedom. We made it out. We were stuck in this dark cave all day and we found the light and we're out now.
Joy. That's what joy is right there.
It was total joy.
That's joy.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't want my talk about the beast to imply that any individual who is trapped inside the beast is somehow maliciously trying to make the world.
No, they're just following what they're supposed to,
Correct. They're in the same.
Their leaders telling them what to do each step of the way.
They're also being controlled. That's what a regime does, is it controls. And so the low-end manager in the regime doesn't mean they're a bad person, right? The tax collector isn't necessarily a bad person, right? He just works for the beast. And so, and this is the can soldiers too be saved question that Luther has an answer to if you really want to get into that. But that being said, you can assess the level of oppression that our beast, our current version of the world kingdom, is exerting in the places that it runs. And you can see that the spirit of this bureaucracy is highly controlled. Yeah. Highly controlled. You are to obey. No room for thinking here. And that is that doesn't bode well for the spirit of a people. No. But we know that the U.S. is in a spiritually demonic place anyway. So it's not like we needed the DMV to tell us that. Yeah. Don't cut things off children. Yeah. That's bad. Don't do that. Oh, you can't keep doing that? You're going to be proud of that? Fire's coming. Yeah, fire's coming. I will give you to your enemies. And you will be your own enemies. Neighboring is neighbor. And what do you see? So you're either in control or being controlled. And so if you don't want to be controlled, then take control of your space for good. For good. And then again, this is where Aurelius. So I have to control Aurelius for his good. And that's hard for a matrilineal American boy. I want him to be happy. Yeah. How can he be happy if has to surrender to me or he's pull on his leash?
Free to make his own choices.
Yeah. How can he be happy? Right? And no, the dog's only happy once he's surrendered to you. Yeah. That so far as a dog can be happy, he will be calm after he surrenders. And man, what a life lesson it is for me, really. If I can, I would like to also share some just kind of basic. I just did like high level dog psychology applied to humans. This is like basic dog brain that I just found super useful coming out of the hours we had with Ben. One is and it's connected to something you had said. He said on the phone before the phone consult that dogs don't have emotions; they have motion. And I was like, no, I don't know. And but I'm getting that more now. So then dogs live in motion, and they have 3 primary versions of motion. So the dog brain doesn't think. He never thinks. He never really feels. He reacts, and he will react in one of 3 ways. He will play, he will discover, or he will follow. Mm-hmm. And we should understand play, like the highest level of play for a dog is I'm tearing your throat out, right? So that's why you got to teach your dog how to play with humans, right?
Yeah.
Because if he's going to play with the other alphas, he's going to kill them or be killed or follow or whatever, get in a dog fight. So three modes are play, discover, follow. And that he's always doing one or the other. He's happiest when he follows. When he's discovering, this is what he's made to do though. He's keen. He's like, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Right? And he's either going to, from what's going on, he's going to jump up and go attack, which is play. Or he's going to be like, oh, follow that guy. That means sit here. That means lie down. Right? That means get calmer and wait for that guy to do something else. And that's all that the dog can do. And that
instinct. Yeah.
And your role then with the dog is strengthened when you see that and react with calm first, respect second, eye knowledge, and don't ignore the dog third, and then permission. So from the eye knowledge, you give the dog a permission to do something, right? And practicing that order of things, and permissions being different things from come to lie down to whatever, free. But it happens. He's looking. He's discovering. You want him to follow you. Give him calm, respect, eye contact, and permission, and he'll give his life for you. State affects story. Change the state, change the behavior. That's a Tony Robbins quote, ish. That totally applies to the dog. So. Maybe last thing from puppy knowledge for the week. And this gets to, we were petting our dog to disobedience. You don't earn trust with affection.
Right.
What a obvious but like valuable thought. You don't make the dog want to obey you by petting it.
Yeah, the word that Ben used is lust.
Yeah.
And I found that to be very insightful.
Yeah.
Especially if you put it into human terms and relationships. Like, I'm not going to be able to foster a deep, meaningful relationship with somebody if it's founded on lust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hunger. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that the idea that the affection for the dog, I want to pet the dog, is ultimately a lustful feeling. It's not sexually lustful for the human, God be praised, but it's the same carnal man really at work. There's just a self need that's there, right? As opposed to desiring the good of the other.
Right.
Yeah. And so this is where a relationship between a man and a woman founded on, we're in love with each other. Oh, we're so in love. Well, it's probably founded upon affection, which has probably got a lot to do with physical touch. I hate to say it, but I'm watching and it's kind of the way it always is.
Yeah.
As in spite of, not until I say I do. And my one video that I made about emotion glue and how you should be careful. People don't like that advice. That relationship founded upon emotion, that is desire for affection, is not capable of navigating the ups and downs of emotional experience in life.
No.
And trust is. But how do you get trust? And that's, dog guru extraordinaire Ben Austin, who you should look up if you're in a local area. Absolutely make use of his services. He was not the preacher I needed when he tried to bring Christianity into it one time, talking about surrender as the heart of Christianity. Partially because my Lutheran hackles went up. And I was also like, well, I really don't want to get in a quibbling argument with this guy about something that I can't agree to, right? Because I know that technically he's wrong. Welcome to Lutheran Conundrum. Okay. But then he did teach me this. Because I remember vividly from my pre-Lutheran days, my semi-evangelical days, the gospel of surrender. That the idea is just give your heart to Jesus and let go entirely. And then when you've done that, now Christianity is going to be real for you. And you're always on this kind of endless stepladder quest to surrender more. Have I surrendered this to God yet? That's why it's not working out. So you're actually really trying to control God by surrendering. Like, that's bad in its wide fruit. But they're onto something. That trust is surrender, and there's no distinction between the two, which means faith is surrender. And we got a question about this that we'll come back and hit this more, but it's not have you surrendered to God enough today. It's that surrendering to God is tremendously powerful. You're just trusting Him. You're just trusting Him.
Yeah.
You know? God, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Do something, please. You know? It's a really freeing, liberating kind of thing. And I don't know that I would have seen it quite the same way if I hadn't seen how it impacted Aurelius. That to surrender to Ben made him happy. For a dog being happy, made him calm. And and to apply that to my language in my own head, I believe in justification by faith. That it means that God is making me righteous by giving me words to trust. Those words themselves are the power that invokes the trust in me. That trust in me, let's go. So he's got this. And surrender's a good word. It's a good word. Don't let the evangelicals take it from us.
As a wife, once you can get to that point where instead of trying to control your husband, you trust that the ball is in his court and it's not your court to be in. And so just allow him to hit the ball however he wants to hit it and know that it's going to go where it's supposed to go. Whether or not that's where you want it to go.
Right.
It's going to go where Jesus wants it to go. And I love your phrase that you gave us in one of your sermons recently. There are no accidents with Jesus. And so when we know that that he is in control of everything. When we remember that, then we can rest in it. Like Aurelius, resting in the fact that, oh no, you've got a plan, Master. And all I have to do is follow. I don't have to worry about the next 4 steps.
Yeah. There's freedom there. And we all have access to that in Jesus Christ. The thing that's in the way is what we want.
Yeah.
What we want. I want what Jesus wants to be what I want, and I'm going to worry about it until I figure out how to make it happen.
I want to be God.
Yeah. We got some questions from y'all out there, just 3 today, that are definitely worth pondering at length. And you could throw some comments and questions in the sidebar, and we may take them up if we have time. Of course, if you don't mind liking the show, that helps the algorithm do a little better. Not that we're really going to get spread far and wide by trying to make like a reference to third world dictatorship and having YouTube be the dictator, but I can't do it quick enough to say. El YouTubo, is in charge of how far this show goes. But insofar as you have power, you can like it, and it'll make it go a little further on somebody else's feed. If you like what we do, the most important thing to do is support us. Subscribestar.com/RevFisk or patreon.com/RevFisk. Keeps the wheels going here in the Fisk household in Rockford, Illinois. And of course, you can also get links to that support at RevFisk.com, RevFisk.com, where the most recent Chapter for Earth section did get published this weekend. It's about the only thing that's come out. But Mad Mondays took a little hiatus and whatnot. So anyway, a lot of writing there, writing coming in the future. You can hear about Aurelius and my journeys into ownership, which means you got to own yourself. You're going to own someone else. Dog teach you to own yourself. That's a good thing.
Were given several wonderful cards, just people reaching out to say thank you for the show, thank you for what we do. And it was such an honor and blessing to receive those. You mentioned like YouTube being in charge of how far the show goes. And I guess I get caught up personally in thinking, yeah, it's really not that big of a deal. You know, what we do, we just kind of sit here and talk for a little bit and then sit. But then when I hear about people's personal stories and what it means to them and the fact that they take the time to say, hey, you know what, it means a lot to me. That's such a gift to me to think, oh, wow, I allowing a little peek into our home is such a big deal to people. And I mean, we have this weird skewed view of what a lot of people is now, because it can be in the millions because of YouTube, I guess, but we touch enough people that we hear about it sometimes, and it blesses me to know that, I don't know, I guess that I have people walking this path with us.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're just out walking the road ahead. And the reason I know that is because you're watching. Yeah. So we're out ahead and trying our best to have no guile.
It's an honor to be considered a leader,
I
suppose, is how I feel about it.
Yeah. But wanting to then own it and inspired to lead well, right? It's a trust that's given. And so wanting to not earn it, but reward it. You know? So, and that means then being good at the leadership. So, okay. Polyhymnia. It's like Latin for many songs or something like that, but not really Latin. Dear RevFisk, what psalms should one pray when beset with sexual temptation? What word of God that's given to you to be your sword while you fight against the devil and his wiles should you use for lust of the flesh when lust of the flesh is upon you with a addictive brainwashing capacity, right? And this can be from the way you're trained by just watching Friends to look at women as sexual objects, or all the way to the way that you can go into a dark hole of the internet and observe the most crass and profane things imaginable. All of it is a matter of the flesh being insatiable so that the inner man is unable to rule the spirit. So what psalms would be best for striving to rule the spirit in matters and moments of such a trial? It's a good question. Really good question. Let me never lead one to believe that I mastered the Psalter. There's so much there. And so my experience with the Psalter is that one of the most amazing things about it is the prayer that I don't know I need is the one I just kind of find. Right. So I can have someone tell me, go look this one up, and it often will be good. It's not like and sometimes it'll be what I just needed to find. But the power of it is your own just swimming in the thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, but with that said, I definitely have two that I have used, and I can't not think about the question, the problem, the temptation when I pray these, because they seem to talk about it. And so even if I'm not in a moment of carnal hunger, I nonetheless have to remember that I've had moments of carnal hunger and desire to repent of that. So that I think it's valuable. They're valuable for this reason. So the one that's most directly connected is Psalm 38. But we're also going to take a brief touch on Psalm 40 here, because I think, Psalm 40 is like the answer to Psalm 38. Psalm 38 kind of says, I have flesh, it's too strong. And then Psalm 40 is sort of like, but I know what God's going to do. So God, please do it. So it doesn't go all the way to victory. But if 38 isn't enough, adding 40 is just a nice finisher. So we're not going to read all of 38, but you do have it there on the screen if you want to see even what I'm skipping over here. But we're asking for a psalm to pray against temptation, particularly temptations, lusts of the flesh. Oh, Jesus Christ, do not rebuke me in your wrath. Right out of the gate, I recognize I'm not in a right spot. Right. I'm not approaching God with a gift to offer, expecting a good return. I'm approaching God knowing that the state that I'm in is not a healthy state, right? So please don't rebuke me nor chasten me in your hot displeasure, right? Recognizing that I deserve worse than I'm already getting. I'm asking you not to make it worse, right? But to fix the problem. I know your arrows pierce me deeply. That's a recognition that the temptation and the struggle that you're having, feeling shame over the evil that you desire, is God's arrow stuck in you already, making you squirm for the knowledge that you have of your flesh. Which verse 3, there is no soundness in my flesh. Right? It doesn't have to be about sexual sin at all. This could be about anything, right? But there is no soundness in my flesh. My own body, heart, mind, soul, spirit is working against God. And so as a result, my iniquities have gone over my head. I'm not in control, right? Sexual sin in the heart is not under control. When it's there, the moment it's there, it's not under control, right? And so if you see that lust as a wound you've inflicted on yourself, you can say, verse 5, my wounds are foul and festering, right? I have this inflammation going on. Why? Because of my foolishness. I did this, not God. I did this. Yeah. I am troubled, right? Well, this is me confessing as a Christian that it bothers me. It bothers me that I have this thing that's evil that I am struggling with. I am bowed down greatly. I go mourning all the day long, right? I'm not running out on a pride parade about this thing. I'm fighting this, but it's not enough, because here it is. I mean, I don't know how else to read this. My loins are full of inflammation, right? My libido, my lust is too great. Right? So I do think that the Psalm goes in that direction here. But I think it's also a symbol of all sins, right? So it's really, I'm out of control, right? You've heard the way people kind of talk, guys only think with one head, right? And it's not the one you're thinking of, right? That's not just about sex. That's about pride. It's about just doing what you want. It's about being blind to the needs of others, all of that. So, the loins being full of information is as much about greed as it is about, and power as it is about sex. But you can definitely, if you're in the moment of the temptation to sex, I mean, it's pretty straightforward to use it that way. There is no soundness in my flesh. He says it again, right? I am feeble and severely broken. I groan because of the turmoil in my heart, right? I can't seem to stop this passion that I have that's wrong. Verse 9, Lord, all my desires before you. Like, you're not, God, I know you see us. I hide in the corner, do whatever I want in an internet chat room, and no one else knows. I know you know, God. I know you know. My sign is not hidden from you. The fact that I don't like it, you know that too. right? I'm trapped. My heart pants. My strength fails me. And I can't even tell anybody. Verse 11, my loved ones and my friends tend aloof from my plague, and my relatives stand far off. That's one of the greatest parts about pornography being a trap to people. You can't tell anybody about it. You can't talk about it. Mm-hmm. You know, you're hiding it all the time. So everyone is distant from you. It does that on purpose. It separates you from people. Those also who seek my life and lay snares for me, I like to pray that against those in our culture who use women objectively to make money. Whether that's porn or whether that's whatever else, the creation of the lure, so you can't go out and walk through the mall without seeing effectively soft porn being thrown at you everywhere, right? So those are those who seek my life, right? I would live a life of piety, and yet here are greedy men shoving images of women into my face, right? So they lay a snare for me. What do I do? Verse 13, I, like a deaf man, do not hear. I'm like a mute who doesn't open his mouth. Like, this is him effectively saying, I don't know what to do. I have nothing I can do. There's nothing I can say. I can't fight back. Right? I am not able to do enough. Verse 15, for in you, O Jesus, I hope. Right? I recognize that my flesh is inflamed, and that itself is already condemnation. Please don't chasten me more. I need you to fix this. Yeah. You will hear, O Lord my God. I know you're listening to me. For I said, hear me, lest my foot slips, right? I know God's going to hear me because I'm asking for mercy. He doesn't want me to fall. So since I know I said, hear me, lest I fall, that he therefore will. So I am ready to fall. I'll say it again, verse 17. So I will declare my iniquity, right? I'm not going to fall further. I'm going to call it what it is. I will be in anguish over my sin. But my enemies are vigorous and they are strong, right? I've been put in this trap. I've been fed this poison, right? So do not forsake me, O Jesus. Oh, verse 21. Oh my God, be not far from me. Make haste to help me, O Lord, my salvation. Right? So a prayer for salvation from your enemies who entice your flesh. Now, we're not going to go all the way through Psalm 40, but Psalm 40 again is going to be like, I know God's answer to that prayer I just prayed is yes. So I'm going to kind of pray it again. Right? I waited patiently for Jesus, and he inclined to me, and he heard my cry, and he brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon the rock. Yeah, but then by the end of this, you're still asking him, verse 17, I am poor and needy, yet the Lord thinks upon me. You are my help, my deliverer. You're declaring that you know he's going to bring an answer to your problem. Yeah. Now, am I saying that praying these two Psalms will stop every addictive action that you've ever had and the habits you've built in your life? No, I'm not saying that. You actually have to kind of do that yourself at some point. The gift that Jesus gives you is the self-control. And so one of you did write in, and I am partway through this book. I don't know if I'll finish it. I don't know if I need to finish it. But I can tell you that it's a super unique approach to, if you're dealing with online sexual sin, to realizing how easy it is to just say no. I'm not sure I can convey why or how it does this, but it's really ingenious little book called The Easy Peasy Method. Peasy spelled like it rhymes with easy. Spelling rhyme going on or whatever. And it really is a treatise on addiction of all kinds. And so if you want a discipline to engage in to try to change some of this behavior, I really recommend that. You're not on porn, you just are attracted to every girl you see. Same thing. It's really kind of it's a good baseline. I don't know. I want to call it a mind trick, but it just sort of resets like the why are you doing what you're doing process. And so check that out. Pray these Psalms while you're doing that. Pray these Psalms and believe that if you need an answer, God's going to give an answer. It may not come like a magical snapshot where everything just fixes, right? These Psalms are here to be prayed by you the rest of your life. They're the sword to use to fight with. Yeah, I think that's what I got on that answer. You got any thoughts?
As you mentioned, the easy peasy method, I was curious, or book, whatever it's called.
It's an online book. It's short book length, but you can only read it online.
I was curious if there's
It's free.
Just an overarching
It comes out of the gate and it says you're gonna quit because you're gonna want to.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who's had a porn addiction, you're like, but that's the problem is I can't quit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, no, you're gonna quit because you want to. And it kind of just keeps telling you that.
Okay.
And you're kind of like, yeah, I do. Huh.
So like our son cracks his fingers.
Oh.
And we would really like him to his knuckles.
Yeah.
He doesn't crack his fingers. He cracks his knuckles.
He would have to believe that he is addicted to it, and then learn and yeah, there has to be a desire to quit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is what confuses many people is they think that like a drug addict doesn't want to quit. No, the drug addict wants to quit.
Okay.
That's the power the drug has over him is that he can't. It's why he's an addict and not just a user. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you addicted to Tylenol or do you just use it? Right? You're a user of Tylenol.
Okay.
Right? You're an addict to heroin. And the heroin addict has moments like, oh, I love the heroin, but there's also moments where, man, I wish I could quit this. Why do I have to have this? And so to get him to stop cracking his knuckles, you have to want to quit. And I'm not sure he does, honestly. But then from there, the easy peasy method is effectively reinforcing that statement that, oh, you want to quit? Well, then you're going to. And here's why. And you know, you want to. You don't like these things that are the results of what you're doing.
Okay.
And so there's really no reason to not quit. So just keep reading. In fact, you can put the book down and go, mess up some more if you need to get it out of your system. But you're going to keep reading, and then you're going to quit. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of, I'm only a little ways into it, but like, I love the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like
it's very empowering.
And it insists that you do understand, and we're talking porn now directly, that porn is a drug.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that it is a drug. You could use social media the same way. Same issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the soft porn, and I think it might have been on my mind just because of where I went yesterday to go get the glasses, which was the mall. And I didn't actually go deep into the mall. It was more or less just seeing the other people who were, I don't know, would it be called patronizing shopping at the mall? And watching the kids and their behavior. And then I thought about so the mall and then movies. I don't know why, but maybe it's because I went to the movie theater in the mall so much as a child, as a young person.
They're not disconnected, that's for sure.
So then I started thinking about movies and what they show you and what they create in your mind as far as even just how a relationship ought to be. How does the movie depict a parent-child relationship? And then why am I trying to imitate that?
Right.
How does a movie depict a husband-wife anniversary? Our anniversary was yesterday. So what would the movies tell me I should think about today? And why do I care? So even though pornography is more sexual, it's kind of this lust of the heart. I mean, Ben's talking about lust and affection kind of going hand in hand with animals. It broadened my scope as far as, what is lust? And it's this, like you had mentioned, this desire, selfish, self-centered, self-focused desire of what do I want, rather than focusing on what do I want, but how does that fit into what the person that I'm wanting from need, and fostering their needs and my wants at the same time.
Best case scenario, yeah. Or sacrificing my needs, my wants to their needs.
Yeah.
Which is the role of the leader.
Right.
Yeah. Any Psalms come to mind for you as you think about fighting maybe despair? Addiction is a form of despair.
When I was held captive at the DMV, I was reading through my Psalms for the day, and I happened to be on Psalm 73 and then kept going from there. But I was struck by, I made mental note of like, wow, I love this Psalm.
73 is really good. I don't know why I know that, but I know that.
I don't know.
I gotta look at it again.
And I don't, as I look back through it, I'm like, why did I think? And maybe it was just the moment, because the title of it is The Tragedy of the Wicked and the Blessedness of Trusting God. And so I think it might have been also just playing on my emotional state in that place too, as I watch person after person walk through, and then, like you said, pick up their device and just kind of zone out for a moment as they wait for whatever comes next.
Into the aether.
But then knowing that I'm set apart and called out of that, it made it so that I just wanted to keep reading, because I think the only one I needed to read for the day was 73, and then I was like, no, I need to go further. So I just kept reading to Psalm 80. But
the Psalms are like that.
Yeah, I think I liked your advice about being in the Psalms personally, and then not trying to just read one psalm for one occasion, but just going to the Psalter, knowing that it is a prayer book and that it's living and active. And so your heart will be fed, your soul will be fed no matter what you find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no better place that I can think of to go than to prayer to our Creator in moments of trial.
Yeah. Yeah. Isaiah is pretty good. I've been finding.
Oh, yeah?
Isaiah is like Psalter number 2. Yeah.
That is interesting that you say it, because as I go through it in my Horner method sections or my Hebron reading, I'm like, oh, yay, I get to read a few chapters or a chapter in Isaiah now.
Yeah.
It's
you really got to
like
slow down
rest,
and
which
you
is
need,
weird because it's not restful.
You know, you need, not need, but it is highly valuable to have the history of Isaiah.
Yes.
That this is the book. I kind of joke about Proverbs 25 to 29 being the book of Hezekiah, because it kind of is. But Isaiah is also the book of Hezekiah. And the whole thing is about Hezekiah as the image of Christ. And it revolves around his story at the middle. So having that story and the history of the North and the South really can enhance what it means to you about where you are right now. But it is, like the Psalter, about where you are right now, like all the time except for the story, the narrative parts. It's kind of marvelous.
Perhaps what makes it so impactful is that you're on a quest to find biblical words or biblical speak for all of these different things that we say and see and interact with in modern life. And so what it does do is it gives us a vocabulary for what's kind of spinning around us.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. This is just from this morning, 62 verse 11. Indeed, Jesus Christ has proclaimed to the end of the world, say to the daughter of Zion, surely your salvation is coming. Behold, his reward is with him and his work before him. And they shall call them the holy people, the redeemed of Jesus. And you shall be called those sought out and a city not forsaken.
That's Isaiah 63.
62.
62.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Psalter number 2. You know?
I was talking with one of our daughters last night. Her mind was just overwhelmed with fear, and that would be a good section to read with her, I think.
Yeah, the last 6 chapters of Isaiah are incredibly hopeful, like unbelievably, and filled with imagery that will be familiar to the average church-going Christian, lectionary going Christian. There'll be language there that's like, oh, I know I've heard of this. Now that may be changing though. I really should say that there is not the same exposure that there used to be. But those last 6 chapters are potent, and in this way to see the prophetic literature of the Old Testament as being prayer. It is preaching too in a way, but if you can understand the pieces, it's its own kind of prayer book. But so living in that, but the Psalter is the ground, right? I mean, Jesus is the foundation. Gospels are the foundation. The Psalter is the daily groundwork where you're walking with Him, and He's given you language to walk with Him.
Yeah, Bonhoeffer in his book,
Psalms, great little book.
He mentions it's like God coming to His children and speaking to them the way that we are to speak. The image is a parent teaching their child whatever language is spoken in the home. You don't expect as a parent that the newborn is going to know how to say milk,
right? But
you say, oh, well, this is how we say it,
right,
in our house,
right? And
you teach that. You give them the words to say. So often with even our older kids, there might be frustration with how a child behaved or interacted with a sibling, and so I find myself actually having to go back and tell the person, okay, in that scenario, you would say, or if I'm speaking and I'm feeling disrespected, I say, no, you look me in the eyes and you say this right now. And I give the words because they don't know.
No, your insight into doing that was when you first started doing it, which is a couple of years ago. I feel like there was a point where it became very intentional. And I noticed that you were doing it. You talked about that you were doing it. That was such a mind-blowing thing. Oh, they actually can't think. They're not able to sit here, reason, and develop their own phrase to respond. All they can do is repeat one they've heard somewhere else before.
Yeah, the study of the classical education model kind of gave that to me in a psychological way. Grammar phase for classical education is the phase of life from essentially infancy on to maybe early to middle school. And it's at that point where you actually feed your child everything, what to say, what to wear, how to act. They're just sponges. They're soaking it all up. And then so to expect them to come up with on their own words to say in moments of fear, moments of excitement, it's just unfair of us. Even in jiu-jitsu, we've talked about these young kids, it's illogical of us as adults to expect them to know just all these different moves out of context and not to give them a pattern, a very specific pattern to follow.
Right, step by step.
Because until they're in the high school realm, they won't be able to be like, oh, I feel my neck tweaking a certain way. I should probably do this move now.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
You have to teach them to take down, and then from the takedown what to do, and kind of build this robotic. It's a what is it? It's a learn and repeat. A catechesis. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, an order.
An echo.
Yeah.
And so we do that with relationships. We do that. You used to hear parents say, okay, so what do you say? If somebody gave your child something.
But when you say, what do you say? You're expecting them to say something you've said before.
It's like a little test.
Yeah.
Do you remember the pattern? Do you remember the...
And then to me, what again was, I knew that kids were picking stuff up when they're young just by being there and listening. And I know you'd say, say this, say that about little things. But to see it in real time where you're like, watching these two kids who are both maybe even almost out of grammar older. Stage, right? Yeah. And it's like, okay, what you just said, you would say it this way if you want this kind of response from them. And then and then you model it. You actually say the thing. And then you're like, now you say that.
Yeah.
And then they say it. And it doesn't necessarily make all the emotions all happy right at that moment, but now it's in the program.
Yes. Yes. And that's the tricky phase. So going from grammar where you're just A, B, C, D, E, F, G over and over and over again. What is that called? It's like read and repeat, or there's a word for that where you're just memorizing information and repeating it back.
Right.
And then going into the next phase, which is logic.
Right.
That's the logic phase is trickier because they show aptitude.
They look like they can think. They talk like they can think, but they're still just parroting phrases.
Yes. So now instead of A, B, C, we're actually doing A, B, K. You know, the sounds. They're leveling up, but they're still repeating.
Right.
And then it's not until high school, like almost out of high school, where they're starting, and you can see this in how clumsy high schoolers are when they're trying to argue with you. You're like, you didn't make any sense right now. Like that, you just said two sides of the same coin. Like, what is your opinion? And they're like, I don't know what my opinion is.
It's like, I think you just agreed with me, but it felt like you were arguing with me. So I'm not sure what to do now.
Yes. And I guess what we see is just how clumsy we are as humans in this development stage. Yeah. And so if we're not able to take a moment to have somebody lead us through, we won't know what to do.
Right.
So point being, bringing it all back, God has given us a book to go to in these clumsy moments when we're like, Lord, my heart is in turmoil and I don't know what to do. There isn't a perfect psalm. I loved the psalm that you recommended for sexual temptation. That's beautiful. But it doesn't have to be a prescription.
Yeah, any of them will work.
It's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Read the whole thing.
Yeah. Any one of them will set a baseline that is unable to be moved, though heaven and earth pass away. So, go set that baseline. Just jump on it. Stand.
Yeah.
This is how we say it in our kingdom. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you for that. Number 2. Here we go. Number B from Anonymous says, how can a Christian guard against pride as he dives deeper into God's word? I'm finding I can very easily exalt myself over other Christians who are not as biblically literate, thinking that I'm better than them because I've done a little reading and studying of his word. I sometimes think about the warning to the church of Ephesus by Jesus in Revelation 2. The church at Ephesus was apparently a strong defender of the faith, but they had forsaken the love they once had at the beginning. So we're going to look at Revelation 2 and a little bit of 3 here by the time we're done. But by entry into this question, how do I stop from thinking I'm better than non-Christians?
Is it non-Christians or just other Christians even?
Or from Christians who act like not Christians sometimes. To me, this is the question, how do I pity the fool?
Okay.
Because he's right. When he asks, how do I avoid pride? Okay. My first thought on that is Proverbs 3 verse 7 that says, do not be wise in your own eyes. That's what he's saying. He said, how do I not be wise in my own eyes? Well, next line, fear Jesus and depart from evil. All right. So this is where we're starting with this question. I want to be someone who is not wise in my own eyes. I want to fear Jesus. I want to depart from evil. But the more I do that, the more I notice how other people aren't departing from evil. So does that mean I'm being wise in my own eyes because I'm wise? Or because I'm wiser than I was? Because I'm not entirely a fool, am I now therefore proud? And you have to be able to you have to say no. One who is actually wise can acknowledge that the other is a fool without it being pride. And to fail to distinguish is to be a fool. Okay? So moving forward with some more more Proverbs about this kind of idea, the struggle here. Okay? Proverbs 26 verses 4 and 5. I know this will be familiar to you, Meridith. I brought it up before. There are two that go together, and they say the opposite thing. Okay? So first one says, do not answer a fool according to his folly, or else you'll be like him. Then it says, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. Well, there it is again, wise in his own eyes. That same idea. It's what we don't want to be. But to not be wise in our own eyes, we have to know what a fool is and not want to be one and not be one. Because the fool is wise in his own eyes, right? So that means you must be able to acknowledge your own wisdom without it being in your own eyes, right? You do that by acknowledging it's not your wisdom. What do you have that you have not received? It's been given to you. What's been given to you? To notice the fool. That's not pride. That's a little bit of fear of God, actually. Say, oh, that guy does stuff that makes God angry. It's dangerous, that guy. Look at him play with fire, right? So pity the fool, right? And I think this category of wise and foolish is very helpful for then answering the question, right? How do I, as a Christian, not go to church and be proud? Well, first off, just decide to say to Jesus, I really don't want to be proud about this. And then go to church and pity the fool. You see this person, they're really ignorant of the Bible. Pity the fool. Poor fool. He's going to go and dig a pit and jump in it and hurt himself. And he may still be saved, but he's going to knock his head a bunch of times that he could just be content. But instead he's not going to be. His eyes are going to be on the ends of the earth, chasing all sorts of stuff, right? So in this then, fools have to exist. They exist. Christians that are enlightened to see the wisdom of God have to not be fools. God has enlightened them. They can't be fools. You can still do foolish things, don't get me wrong, but no. Biblically, you're the one who is being given wisdom. You're searching for it. Seek and you will find. Ask and it will be given to you. The Holy Spirit will be poured out upon you. Pressed down, running over. He's not going to hold back. So you're going to notice the fool, right? And then when you notice the fool has, you want to leave the fool alone and you can't let the fool talk. Well, that means you have to be with him too, right? So you have these two things. You have to not answer the fool and you have to answer the fool. But to do either one, you have to be able to know you're not the fool. How do you know you're not the fool? Because Jesus chose you and has enlightened you by his word. You say the things the wisdom of the word says, rather than the things that the fool says. You're judged not by you, but by the word. And so as a result, again, you can see the fool. You want to pity the fool so that you answer the fool and don't answer the fool. All according to the wisdom that's been laid out for you in the scriptures. And this is not pride. Pride would be to think that somehow I don't need to pity the fool. Stupid fool. And he's so evil and I'm so good. And most Christians probably aren't going to be in that spot. You're just more doing the Lutheran guilt thing, which is an issue. You mentioned Ephesians chapter 2, and it's worth kind of looking at here. To the church of Ephesus, right? And by the way, on the part about first love, I think, how do I say this? I think the letters in Revelation.
So you're not in Ephesians, you're in Revelation.
Yeah, it's the letter to the church at Ephesus.
Oh, okay.
Revelation chapter 2. Did I say Ephesians 2?
You did, but that's
I'm sorry. Yeah, Revelation chapter 2. The other letter to the Ephesians. Right. It's Ephesians 2.
Right.
2. Second Ephesians.
Second Ephesians.
That's kind of cool. We got a second Ephesians. I never thought about that. I think that the letters in the book of Revelation are the most confusing part of Revelation. I think they're the hardest part of Revelation. You would think they'd be the easiest, and we just kind of zoom past them because they're so different. I think they're really tough. Part of this is because there's all sorts of stuff it references that we just don't know what they're talking about. There's context that's missing from these letters. So what I'm going to do is just kind of comment on the letter to Ephesus and try to bring it into this context of how does one not become arrogant with the knowledge of God? I mean, Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians. So not all knowledge puffs up, love builds up, right? So how do I not become puffed up? It's a really good question. Well, again, you pity the fool, and you seek to not be wise in your own eyes, knowing that will, in fact, be wisdom that will show you the fool all the more, so you can pity the fool. Right? It circles a little bit, but all right, so these things Jesus says, and he holds the 7 stars in his right hand. That's pretty awesome. That means he's in charge of the church. He walks in the midst of the 7 golden lampstands. That also means he's in charge of the church, like even down to your very personal faith. He says, I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil, right? So yeah, you got good doctrine. Good for you. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and not, and found them to be liars. I'll look at you. You even don't do syncretism. Good for you. This is the letter to the Lutherans. And verse 3, and you have persevered and have patience. Here I stand, right? And have labored for my name's sake and have not become weary. Those are positive things. Don't let my cynicism here take away that he's actually saying these are positive things. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. Wouldn't it be nice if he told us what that meant? It doesn't say, and anyone who tells you that they know it means what they think it means is insisting on reading into the text what they want it to mean. It can mean a number of things, and all of them can kind of be right, but the fact is, it doesn't say. It just doesn't say. So don't ever bind your conscience with this. Instead, go to the end of 1 John, and little children, keep yourselves from idols. There you go. Bind your conscience with that. Okay? Because that, you can know what that means. This, you forgot your first love. Every attempt I hear on this is like somehow you need more emotions for Jesus. Okay, manufacturing emotions is not what the human body does. The brain does, well, it kind of does, but not by thinking. You don't think yourself into emotions. And negative ones maybe. But instead, what is love but loyalty, right? Not affection. We want to read this as affection. You've forgotten your first affection. Agape and even philia are more than just affection. What's the first love? I mean, it has to be Jesus somehow, right? It has to be your faith in God, your trust in God, your surrender to God, whatever you want to look at that. But since it's not specific to them, all we know is that what is missing somehow is love itself, a very hard to define American word, right? Might I suggest that they don't pity the fool? They've forgotten the first love, which is the freedom of the gospel. They've forgotten that the fact is it's all under grace. It's all under grace. So you hate those who hate God under grace, right? As opposed to hating those who hate God without grace. And there is a difference. What is your first love? Not that you love him, but that he loves you, right? And that grace which is poured out into you will be the inhabitation of the Holy Spirit's outgoing from you over time. And he has this against them, that they've forgotten that. They're just all about getting it right. That's the letter to the Lutherans here, right? It's all about getting it right. Remember, therefore, from where you have fallen, right? Like, you didn't put yourself where you are. Repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly and remove your lampstand from its place unless you repent. Like, I'm going to stop you from being a church unless you do some works. Wait, salvation by works? No. Salvation under works. Yeah? Like, you don't not work once you're saved. Like, you're saved and you're like, oh, I can see good. I'm going to do that now instead of the evil. Golly, I'm so tired of the evil. Huh? But they're so happy to be right, it seems, that they don't see the good of love, whatever that means. And again, it's kind of squishy there. But this you have, as if it were not open-ended enough, this you have, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. We got no clue. No scholar knows who the Nicolaitans are or what they taught. But we know that Jesus didn't like them. Right? And the people in Ephesus, they didn't like him either. So good for you. And the Nicolaitans will show up somewhere else and in this set of letters. And clearly John had it in for them a little bit. He was an ear led the Spirit here. Now, I want to go on and also look at Revelation chapter 3, verses 15 and following, the Laodiceans, because I think this is really what your question is getting at, is how do I as a Christian live in Laodicea? Mm. I am repenting what Laodicea is doing. I want to repent. And the result is that I see lukewarmness everywhere. How do I deal with that now without becoming, the Ephesus church, right? Wagging my finger everywhere. But it starts by not denying the fact that Jesus does not like lukewarmness. He does not like it. He's all about salvation by grace, but it's not salvation by grace unto lukewarmness. That is not the gospel. So he says to them in Laodicea, I know your works, that you're neither cold nor hot. I could wish that you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth. I mean, geez, that's kind of intense. It really is. Wow. Like, you're gonna cast me away from your salvation? And you're gonna consider me, how much do you love vomit once it comes out? Like, you're not like, oh, let me take care of that. Well, I have to take care of that. What do? Well, you don't keep it. Right. So this is harsh language from Jesus here. Right. Mm-hmm. Harsh. And it's about this lukewarm idea. And so the questioner, anonymous, what you're struggling with is that you're aware, like, oh, look, we're kind of lukewarm. And you could have gone back 50, 30, 40, 20 years and said that about American churches. We're lukewarm. Yeah. The whole lot of us. If we're zealous for like the nation state of Israel or something. Right. Or maybe feeding the poor, or maybe woke agendas, but like, we're not particularly as a whole zealous to come out from the wickedness of the peoples in which we dwell, to be a people set apart who are willing to not change what we believe, no matter what they say to us. And how do I know that? Because we don't even read what we're supposed to hold on to. We don't even know. Reading commentaries on commentaries on commentaries rather than the original thing. And it's watered the whole thing down. And meanwhile, we're wealthy. We appear to be blessed. We are like Judah in the days of Jotham. You say you're rich, you're wealthy, you have need of nothing, but you don't know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Right? So lukewarmness is wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Verse 18, I counsel you to buy from me gold, that's wisdom right there, gold refined in the fire, that you may be rich, and white garments, that's forgiveness, that you may be clothed, that the shame of your nakedness may not be revealed, and anoint your eyes with eye salve, that you may see, right? Remember, wisdom and sight are connected. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten, therefore be zealous and repent. Be zealous, that's the opposite of lukewarm. Be jealous for God. So you're in the moment where you see that there is a lukewarmness. Being jealous for God is the right response. It doesn't mean your anger will bring about the righteousness of God, right? But he has invited you into the jealousy. He's invited you into seeing the zeal for truth. Yeah. And what is your first step? To surrender to him that he's in charge of it. And then to learn to speak the truth in love. To correct as a father corrects a son. Not a brother, and punching each other and all this, but with tact and carefulness, and so forth. Be zealous. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Right? So, and again, the thread there, he'll take away the lampstand of the church if we don't open that door. And that's not salvation, because he's already here, right? This is a conversation not between non-Christians and Christians about becoming saved. It's a conversation between Christians about recognizing that the warnings that are in Scripture about being a faithless people that will be cast out of the land, that's the pattern of the entire thing, right? Those warnings are for real. and they still apply to what it means to be a Christian congregation. Mm-hmm. And you might not be cast out of the congregation. The congregation might just cease to be in church. And lukewarmness is a sign that that's well on its way. So what does a person do when they see that? Well, yeah, don't be wise in your own eyes, but like, don't be a fool either. Don't be a fool either. Come out from her, my people. A word fitly spoken. Seek to have one. Well, how do you do that? Well, how was it? It's just how we say it in our kingdom. Like, practice. Read it. Mm-hmm. Read it. Put the inputs in. Let them come out. It'll happen over time. But I tell you, if you're drowning it with all the other inputs, expect it to take longer to start coming out again, right? Yeah. If 2% of your inputs is Bible, then 2% of your output is going to be Bible, or maybe it's 1%. Maybe it's diminishing return. I don't know.
The question is one that I have struggled within my own self. So it was good to listen to what you had to say, because let's see, I'm trying to see how to say this. It would seem that anytime I think that I have understanding, or somebody is like, oh, you have wisdom in this area, it's like, oh, I have arrived.
Yeah, sure.
And then inevitably the Lord puts this little crack in the sidewalk, and I trip and fall on my face. And like, don't just fall on my face, but like skin it up with scabs. And it's huge humbling moments. So I kind of get nervous now. If somebody's like, oh yeah, good. It's like, oh, I don't want to fall.
He rebukes and chastens those he loves.
Yeah.
So understand that you're not going to avoid being wise in your own eyes to some extent if you're going to become wise. Mm-hmm. Part of the wisdom that is real is to realize that you are wise in your own eyes more often than you ought to be. And that's going to happen through chastening.
Yeah. And I think what I'm getting from what you led us through with the scripture is, as wisdom is revealed to me, as I become aware of scripture and what, I guess, what it looks like perhaps to be a reverent follower of Christ, my focus ought to be more keen on those around me.
Yeah.
If now that I know what it looks like to exit my pew and walk up to the communion rail, it is more important for me to make sure that those around me get there too.
Yeah.
Than it is for me to be focused on how deep my bow, how big my personal remembrance of baptism is, how how much, when did I say amen? When did I, no, if Grandma Tildy is next to me falling.
Yeah. You want to get her. You want to be aware enough
I
of her.
must reach out and help her to the rail.
Which is pity the fool, but not necessarily Grandma being a fool.
No.
But it's
seeing the weak one among me.
That's it. That's right. And the fool is the weakest, the most to be pitied, because Grandma might fall and Grandma's going to heaven. The fool, we don't know what's going on with the fool. Jesus may save some of these fools and make them into just simpletons, but we don't get to know that judgment. So pitying the fool is like holding Grandma's arm.
Yeah.
The problem is the fool's like lashing out everywhere, so you got to like dodge and weave very carefully in to give a nugget that he could actually maybe hear. But then, answer him according to his folly, lest he be wise in his eyes. But as you're answering him, you might get hurt.
Well, and if he's slashing out,
Yeah.
who else is he whacking on the way?
That's correct.
You know,
That's why you don't want to walk beside him. You're going to get hit all the time.
Obviously, he might not obviously, but he might be the one that I cannot reach out to.
Correct.
It's those that are in his wake that I'm like catching. And
Correct.
I see this state as like one of more responsibility, one of more, you have more to nurture now. It's not one of elevation in the least. It's okay. So now, I have been given this honor, but now it just means that I have to make sure that those below me are cared for and brought into it as well.
Yeah.
I'm no longer one among the many. It's like, oops, now I have to. It's just a place of more responsibility.
I think it's a privilege.
Absolutely.
And so to try, so I noticed that this person just said something that's really unbiblical and probably harmful, but not, excommunicable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful for that discernment.
Right.
Now, how do I not get hurt by absorbing whatever they did or are going to say? How do I protect others? Not this person. If possible, how do I help this person? Mm-hmm. Right? I wasn't given that discernment so I could be like, well,
let me put you in your
let
place.
me think of, just let me sit here and think about how wise I am that I'm not dumb like you. Like,
yeah, I see.
Ain't no Christian got time for that, because your eyes are being opened to see the fool for who the fool is, which means you're working on serving your neighbor as your neighbor, not as some imaginary friend that you're going to make be a follower. Right? You got to deal with the person who's right in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes, again, that might mean like, well, golly, I just don't talk to those people at church because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and if it takes but a moment to figure out whether or not somebody is open,
right,
or if they are going to feel like their own wisdom is set in a place where they don't need anymore.
Right.
And so they're closed to guidance or dialogue.
Right.
And so like you said, we don't really need to waste our time. But because you now have that wisdom of discernment, being able to not waste it on, not waste your time on, is this right? Is this wrong? You can then therefore,
and that's where like
spend more time loving your neighbor.
Yeah. Excuse me. It's a form of enlightenment. And by enlightenment, I don't mean like, look at me. I'm going to take a selfie of me doing yoga by the beach to show you how enlightened I am. What I mean is my mind is lighter than it was. Like there's less to carry.
Yes.
I feel like I am further up than, say, the sheep that are down below and can see a greater distance. And that is light.
Right.
It's not heavy. That I have been enlightened. Am I enlightened because I'm such a special person? Well, I'm baptized. Jesus chose me, so in that regard, I'm such a special person. But it's not like it comes out of my flesh. It's not like I'm like just wandering around feeling things and suddenly I see so clearly. It's the other way around.
There's the parable that Christ speaks of where when much is given, much will be required.
Absolutely.
This is a very much so an illustration of that, I think.
What do you have that you have not received? Yeah. Every single piece of it. And so the more that you see, the more God is entrusting to you a stewardship to use it for good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're asking, well, I want to use it for good. I don't want to use it for bad. Yeah, good. Then just do that. Chase that, and expect chastisement along the way. It's going to happen.
Yes.
But the chastisement is under grace. And so when the chastisement comes, you can preach to yourself that this is for your good. There are no accidents. Jesus got a plan.
Yeah, I almost dread those questions that ask about like our marriage or something, because I'm like, oh no, that means after we answer it and are talking about how well we've got it all figured out and we do it this way, it's like, ooh, what hurdles coming now?
I'm gonna go take a little pit stop. So here's the hurdle.
Favorite part of the show.
Everyone's favorite part of the show. It is Meridith on stage alone. In fact, I'm even gonna.
Me by myself.
Oh, that's the wrong way. There we are. Now you are entirely alone. No one knows I'm here except I'm still talking, and I'm gonna have to go through.
Yeah, we get a little profile view of something.
I'll be right back.
All right. Now I get to figure out what to talk about. Ugh. It's always so abrupt. It's like we're talking, we're dialoguing, I'm engaging, and then whoop. Okay. So, yeah, I guess, I could talk a little bit more about what happened this week in our family. And you know what? No, this is what I'm going to talk about. So, with the dog and how much has happened in our family with regards to the dog, there have been so many different emotions. We were excited about having a puppy. We are a family who love animals. And so another furry creature was like the best thing in the world. But then quickly what was like the best thing in the world, it was like eating too much cake. Moderation is fabulous. And then when you overindulge, it becomes a little too much and you're like, whoa, I don't really love it anymore. So raising a puppy is something that I was not as prepared for. I knew I'd done it in high school and I knew what it entailed. I knew like the 3 a.m. wake up. That's going to be part of life now. But I guess I just wasn't prepared for how constant the exercise need of the dog would be, and what that would mean as my husband, he wanted the dog but was in no place to give up the time in his daily schedule to care for the dog. And so that meant, well, the next in line is me, helpmate that I am. So I took on that responsibility, and it became so much, and it drew me away from what I love, which is my home, so often. But then I struggled with like, I don't want to just be angry about this blessing that I've been given, because a dog is a companion and therefore a blessing in that way. But so I was trying to see the good in all of it. I'm up at 6 a.m. and I get to watch the sunrise outside instead of through the window now. I get to go walking with somebody who loves walking. And so sharing that gift together was a good thing, but it was hard. And my tasks at home started to show the fact that I just had taken on way too much responsibility. And then it became evident that no, it was necessary for Jonathan to take on more responsibility with dog. And so he did. And would you believe, like, the first thing, or the thing that I struggled with the most, was something that I missed tremendously once it was gone. And that actually has been a lesson that I've noted many of the people over at Hebron have learned. Like, as soon as a big burden is lifted, you're like, wow, where'd that burden go? I kind of liked what it did to my routine. I kind of liked the grit that it gave me. And so that's kind of been a struggle that I've faced, and also a longing for my little companion, my shadow. But really excited that he's in a position now where Jonathan is able to work with him, because I think you could have appreciated having him as a teeny baby puppy.
Mm-hmm. I would now more.
Now you would, right? Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have known what to do before.
But back then, it would have, we were not in a mental state to take on that
didn't have the knowledge.
responsibility.
I mean, just the time with Ben Austin, 815. Check him out. It's like a masterclass.
Yeah.
I learned so much, and the several weeks in puppy school with Dave.
That really helped too,
also,
just help us to be in control rather than be controlled.
And so I don't know how you do that unless you just get the puppy and then go do all that away. Just immediately.
Absolutely.
And we were not ready to do that or thinking about that. We were more like, okay, we can do this. We've done rabbits, And
and I'd done a puppy before, but different breed. Whoa. Like, Labrador Terrier is not a German Shepherd. No. And I guess I didn't realize that dogs, all rabbits are different. Yeah. Like we specifically bought Sweet Rabbit, the Dutch bunny, because they need to be social. And we knew that would be a part of our family. Like, okay, little creature, you better like to be loved to death because that's what's going to happen. And so we thought, I knew that about rabbits. And I guess I did know that a little bit about dogs. I tried to find the breed that fit what our criteria were and what our environment would be. But we weren't ready for just what type of sensitivities. Well,
I think what we've learned, what I've learned from him though, I think what happens is most other dogs are out of control, but they're small enough that you can kind of keep it in a corner, and they're not generally going to challenge your alpha in a physical fight.
Or it's kind of funny and cute.
It's kind of funny and cute
look,
when
he's
they do.
biting my ankle.
Yeah, look at him attack me. I'm gonna kick that thing. Get off me, little puppy.
Aurelius, it was like, oh my goodness, take cover.
Yeah, right. You got a.
There was a moment.
Half-size wolf.
There was a moment where I dropped the leash in the kitchen, and Jonathan came in, and Aurelius started to growl, and it was like, I knew if I make a false move, like he won't intentionally wound me, but I could get wounded.
Could get nipped. Yeah.
And it's not going to be like a little nip because he just is that powerful.
Yeah, right. He's just that big.
And his brain in those growling sessions is not present. He's total instinct. And so it's like
his on meter has been turned up, and he hasn't learned the proper channel for releasing it within the environment. And that's what I have been working hard to provide those channels, and then correct, rechannel the moments where his on is previously uncertain and trying to force others to surrender to him. Now he's getting, in those moments, he's going to surrender to me. It's going to happen. And it doesn't have to be harsh, although it's harsher than what we would do with babies, which is be nice and sweet to them, right? Yeah. It's
so,
he's an animal.
So different. Yeah, like dogs are dogs. Humans are humans.
I love what this has taught me though too. Like bit and bridle, the horse and the mule is bit and bridle, right? Like you can say that's cruel, but the bit and bridle has been developed so that you don't have to whip the horse, right? Like so there must be tools for the discipline, and the tool for the dog is the choke collar. I much prefer this vinyl one to the metal one we were using, because it's just so much better. Because why? Because when a dog is in a conversation with another dog and it's about who's going to be in charge, the way that the dominant dog wins is he puts his mouth around the other guy's throat. That's how they communicate. And so men have developed a way to put our mouth around the dog's throat in such a way that that dog will give up instantaneously, in a way that just kind of makes him go like, oh, that didn't feel very good. What happened a moment ago? I feel much more calm than I do. Huh.
Do you remember getting tested for strep when you were a little kid?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, like with sticking the swab down their throat.
Yeah, that's about right.
It's about like that. It's like where you're like, okay, they would tell you, pant like a dog. And you're like,
That's about right. But then seeing one of our children sees this as cruelty.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And having to see that there's actually a kindness there that could be cruelty, but the exerting the ownership is kindness, and doing it in the most humane way possible is kindness. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And the key to it all is calm.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing it from a place of calm, that's totally different than a place of, what my go-to phrase is freaking out, but that means more like unleashed anger or fear.
The dog's turned on, you turn it on isn't going to help.
But my point in bringing this up is just to see how something that had become a huge burden in my day and had actually weighed me down to a point of like exhaustion. Yeah. Once it was gone, I missed it. Yeah. I missed the discipline that it brought to my day and to my emotions. So the lesson is to look at those things in our life that we hate and to see it, to go all the way back to the beginning of the show, as a gift, and to see it not as this drudgery, but no, this is a gift given to me by Jesus for some reason.
If only I can see it.
Yeah.
If only I can see it.
Yeah. So that was my little monologue.
It's a good story. It's hurt me to watch you miss him. I don't like you being sad, and so seeing the sad, I just want to fix it because I'm a man, and that's what men do, is we try to fix everything, including our women, and that's stupid. I feel your loss.
The best thing to do, I think, I'm not all women, but I am a pretty typical woman, I think. Typical woman. Women. From my womanly perspective, the best thing to do when you see that I'm struggling is to let me know. I see how painful this is. Mm-hmm. That goes way farther than the validation of my emotion goes way farther than you then taking the dog and giving him back to me, because I don't want the dog back. Like, I love being with my kids. I have 5 growing tiny people that are not tiny anymore who need me and had longed for me, and I couldn't give enough to be with them. Yeah. And so so I'm thankful that I have them. They need to go on walks. I actually went on a walk this morning before the show with 2 of them.
Great.
So it's like, I had to remind myself, like, okay, why do I miss this companion? Why do I long for companionship from something that I don't have when I have all these other people who want and need me to be their companion? I mean, more than a companion, but they just need me present. Yeah. And then we have been blessed with a house full or semi-full, slightly
filling,
not full, of young men who need me in a different way. It's a really interesting, it's an interesting vocational role that I fill over there. And I'm still trying to figure out what that means and what that looks like.
Reset, reboot. But season 2 is starts tomorrow. I just made a note a moment ago, like, go unplug the internet. It's January.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
I mean, the guys are mostly gone. One of them's back right now, but there's Christmas break time. But like this is the reboot time.
The one who's back, I was like over there the other day, and I said, okay, so you're here by yourself. You have a little bit of time. You have space to spread out. You wanted to learn to sew. This is what you need for a quilt. Go get it. I'll guide you through it. It doesn't mean I'm going to be sitting over there sewing with him. Yeah. But it is a super great way for him to focus his time and his energy in the quiet. Because Because the last thing like anybody on a monastic year needs to do is hunch over their smartphone and try to read or look at YouTube videos because they don't know how else to fill their time. There's no internet.
And if I catch you, that's a strike right there.
Yeah.
That's a mark. Like get off it. You're not here for the right reasons.
Go for a walk.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's been the hardest piece is like, because not every student has necessarily wanted that.
No.
And so for me as a headmaster to try to discern which students are right for the school.
Yeah.
Not is the school right for you? It's like, is the student right for the school?
Mm-hmm.
That's been an interesting learning curve. And I'm really thankful for all the guys that have been here through that process. Because, how do I then, if anybody was unfair, it was me to them, not giving them a clear enough set of expectations.
I see.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not that anything was bad, but we've had guys say, "Yeah, it's not for me." It's like, okay, how do I talk about it so that those who come, it is for them, right? And it is this like you can't want to just be watching videos all day,
right? If you want to unplug from society,
yeah.
This is the
We're
place
gonna help
for
you do it.
And there's plenty to do to keep your mind and your hands busy while you're unplugged.
Yeah. But we're not going to make you do it with whip.
But like you said,
cannot be like mule, horse and bridle.
Right.
All that.
We're not there to like tell you every step. We'll get you started. We'll tell you. I mean, that was what I did. I said, okay, you want to make a quilt? I'll bring over design books from the library.
Yeah.
But you need to go gather the materials. And, he's like, I'm not really good with colors. I said, that's okay. Here's a really basic way to do colors in quilts. Find a pattern you love, one fabric that you love, and then pick out different colors that are in that fabric and go with those too. And that'll be fine.
Good
But
advice.
Otherwise, just make it crazy. Just do what you love. Grab everything you absolutely adore and put it in the quilt. And that's a story right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm not going to be over there cutting the squares out with you.
Yeah, no.
And I'm not going to sew them together either.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to come to me and say, okay, next step.
And if you don't get it done, then that lesson is its own lesson.
Right.
Yeah. We got one more question. I'm going to go to it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then unless you want to.
I'm just hanging out. I have no idea what time it is. I have no idea how many people are here with us.
A good number. Yeah, right around 60. Anonymous, again, another anonymous, says,
he's busy.
What is faith? Now, we talked about trust already today, and I want to emphasize the surrender aspect of this because I think it's really insightful. And no, I'm not an evangelical because you don't get saved by making a decision to believe. Faith simply is believing what has been said, and that requires a surrender of what you think instead. And so trust and surrender being faith, I think it's just really potent if you can de-shackle that language from the abuses that certain Christian elements have foisted upon them by decision theology effectively. Surrender, as evangelicals teach it, is another form of decision theology. And what I'm teaching it as is the experience of subjective justification. And go look up that distinction, objective to subjective justification, if you want to, fight me on it Lutheran style. And there are those Lutherans out there who would actually, they'd be like
objective
versus subjective justification. And there are Lutherans out there that deny one or the other of those even existing, and they fight about it. Because you're worried about that, right? Like, I know the guy at Walmart was yesterday. He was all like, "Hey, man, have you heard this debate about subjective versus objective justification?"
He's like, I'm glad you brought your dog to this parking lot so I could talk to you about that.
Objective justification is the work outside of you that Christ has done upon the cross. You are objectively justified. You add nothing to it. You take nothing away from it. Subjective justification is the experience of faith in Christ. So you believe what Christ did on the cross is for you. You are experiencing the promise of justification. It's not something you're doing. It's coming to you. It's still outside of you, but it's not without you. You're in the cart. The horse is pulling the cart. You're in the cart. Subjective. Objective, Jesus is risen from the dead, right? So,
and some people think that one or the other doesn't exist.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
Lutherans like to fight over whether or not they're right about how it could be wrong.
Oh, wow.
Like one guy one time somewhere said it this way, and that could lead people to hell.
Mm.
So let's write it down, codify it, and make sure no one talks like that anymore. It's sickness, guys. It's a sickness. It's a pride sickness, too. German as the day is long. Luther called it crazy Germans. He didn't say be like the Germans. And we're like, it's the gospel. Be like the Germans. Not quite, but almost. What is faith? The pre-20th century definition was trust based on evidence. So faith is trust based on evidence. I'm not sure where he's getting the pre-20th century stuff, but like, it's kind of right though, right? I trust something. Why do you have trust in a person? Because of the evidence, because of the experience you've had with that person.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. That
So
makes sense.
it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Our modern era has redefined it to mean believing something without evidence. Now, I don't know about the modern, pre-modern thing here, but you definitely have trust that exists because of experience. And then you have people kind of pitching the leap of faith, right? Which is trust based upon not experience, but just deciding to believe that it will be what I want it to be, right? There are miracles when you believe and that kind of thing.
Okay.
A leap of faith, which is not a correct understanding of the word. This is what Oprah teaches.
I was going to say, that was exactly where my head went.
Oprah teaches leaps of faith.
Yeah.
Prosperity gospel teaches leaps of faith. Right? Faith is something that I must invest in to get a reward out of. And the investment is not having evidence in what I believe and believing it anyway. Right? Now, they might point to faith is the certainty of things unseen and say, therefore, faith is believing without evidence. But don't see, just because it's not seen doesn't mean there's no evidence, right? What Christians believe that is unseen, we believe because the evidence of what God has said about it. It's not like it's just done. There's no evidence. The evidence has been revealed to us. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So, there's the kind of key distinction. Now, he's kind of got wanting to expand, so I'm going to finish this question then. I'm leading you on here, so apologies, but the old definition wholly supports your own exhortation to be biblically literate. Can you expand on this? So yeah, we kind of already did, but we'll do again here. That the life of the Christian, Lutheran style, justified by grace through faith, is a life in which you experience trust in God, the Father, based on the evidence of the resurrection of Jesus Christ as the fulfillment of the entire revealed Word of God, which we call the Bible, but is the Holy Scriptures, many and various ways of God uttering into creation, after he spoke creation into existence, a redemptive word. Oh.
Yay!
Ooh, I like that.
That was good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I take a bow. No, thank you. I want to know that for my own self here, right? Because this has application, which is the surrender piece of it, right? So that we have a word that shall not pass away. And call it the Bible if you want. That's the way Americans talk about it. It's a complex book. Go read the Bible. Like that's a complex command. Okay. Even so, we have the word that shall not pass away. The Christian has been awakened to live a life of surrendering to its truth. I come with the sin. It comes with the truth, both repentance and forgiveness. And I get to experience being put under that, standing under that, having understanding of that. Yeah. And that is enlightenment again. It is freedom. But it is also, mastery, not of myself, but being under another master.
Absolutely.
Yeah. being owned.
Yeah.
Ukiste auton agarestet tagar to me. So you were bought with a price. But that's so faith is trust. Trust is surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't try harder to surrender, like as if you're going to have enough surrender to really, really, really surrender this time. That's not what I mean. I just mean like the word is true. Like get under it.
Yeah. Right. Yep. I was talking with one of our daughters last night about fear and how important in these moments it is to remember I am called out. I am Christ through my baptism. Yeah. And the coolest part is that this daughter is actually named in so many ways baptism. And so I was able to point to that and say, you cling to that promise as you go through this life which is going to have mountains and valleys, but because of whose you are, that the ultimate promise you are clinging to is Mount Zion, and keep that as your focus, even though you're going through yuck down here. And then, help let that be what continues to prod you on and not give up.
Yeah. Sojourners toward the final home.
Once we're able to realize that my ultimate good rests in Christ's hands and he wants good for me, then these fears and worries that we have, just suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, that's not my responsibility. I don't know what kind of vessel I was created to be. I don't know. Her fear was rape. She's like, honestly, I'm really, really terrified of being raped. I don't know why, other than just
movie stories.
Yeah.
Life.
A lot of it was personal stories that have been shared with me in her hearing. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the blessings of being who I am on this walk is that people open up readily to me and share their stories. And what is it? Little pictures have big ears. And so just, whoa, this actually happens to people and it's terrifying and it impacts them throughout their life. And I said, you know what? I don't wish that upon you at all, ever. Mm-hmm. But think about, what if you did get raped when you were older, say, and a baby was conceived? Mm-hmm. That's a gift. Mm-hmm. That baby is a gift to you.
Yeah. It's hard to see that.
Yeah,
it's hard to see that.
It is. There was a woman that I knew in college. She sang in my choir, and that's how I knew her. And she was actually raped at a college party pretty early on in her, what do you call it? College career.
Yeah, right.
But she ended up having the baby, bringing the baby to full term, and then not giving it up for adoption, but raising it as her own, which she was. Raising her. Her name was Grace. Mm-hmm. And
it's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Powerful witness.
The thing about Grace is that she might not even know who I am anymore. Mm-hmm. But God used her story to give me hope. Mm. Because it could happen to anybody. Mm-hmm. She was at a party that was not a threatening party. She wasn't a party girl. Mm-hmm. And somebody put something in her drink.
Yeah, right.
And then Grace was created. So, without that valley, that the beauty of Grace wouldn't be there. And she's a person. She's touching people's lives here and there and wherever right. God has put her. Right. But trying to reveal that to our daughter last night, that awful things happen, but God uses them for good. Mm-hmm. And as we're talking, trusting the good is coming, even though we can't see it in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what I mean, she's just battling fears, right? She's
Yep.
battling nightmares, waking dreams,
Yep.
stories implanted in her head from a mad world. And the solution is, I mean, on one hand, it's to say, okay, if the worst case scenario happened, Jesus is in charge.
Yeah.
And then from there, to recognize you're not in the worst case scenario. Jesus is in charge here now already.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is also strength in saying, well, Jesus, I don't want that cup.
Yeah.
If I got to drink it, then I got to drink it. But I don't want that cup. I want to lead a pure and chaste life. Please don't saddle me with that shame.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And know that you're praying for what God wants to give. And then until you have a worse scenario, be content and be confident that you're going to walk on a straight and narrow path, and the
Right.
valley will rise up to meet you. The hills will bow down before you. Don't. He's not trying to trick you. It's not a trick.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting how when you hear about other people's struggles, it's like, whoa, I couldn't do that. But them hearing about other people hearing about your struggles, they have that same
Mm-hmm.
thought.
Mm-hmm.
God gives us grit for what he has put in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
So she has her own, our daughter has her own huge struggles that if you write it down on paper, is like, wow, how does she get, how is she still the bubbly, life-filled little girl that she is?
Mm-hmm.
Because God gives you, she's been given the grit to face her struggles today.
Mm-hmm.
And so for her, she can look at that and she can know with confidence, he'll give me the grit and strength and courage
Mm-hmm.
I need to face tomorrow too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's faith, right? The evidence, basing your belief on the evidence that you see from
Mm-hmm.
past,
Mm-hmm.
but then also resting in the promise.
Mm-hmm. The evidence that is most important is not my experience, but the text.
Yeah.
And then my experience will confirm the text. It really will, but you got to know the actual text. Like
Mm-hmm.
my experience will not confirm the prosperity gospel preaching, but it will confirm the human nature is what the Bible says that it is.
Yeah.
That grace is the power that it says it is. That promises that can be trusted are worth their weight in gold, and that such wisdom is far more precious than rubies and things like that. So, yeah. I have another question here, and then there was a question in the sidebar a while back that I can maybe try to answer a little bit here, if I can understand it. Jake says, can you help me understand God orientating his relationship with us around our worship of him? No one has given me an answer that didn't make God sound like he needed our praise. Would appreciate it. So, yeah, like the idea that we worship God because
He's lonely.
he's lonely. No one's ever said anything different than that to you. I'm pretty sure worship is where we get fed by God, and it delights him to do that. So it's not like he doesn't get pleasure out of it. And to think about a being that doesn't change getting pleasure, you're not going to psychoanalyze the divine Godhead of three persons. So it's like stop it, right? But why is he oriented worship around him? Because he wants to express to creation who he is in love, and man is his intermediary for doing this. And so he needs to express himself to us so we can turn around and be expressions of him to the world. And it hasn't gone so well until Jesus, and now it's going perfectly. Yeah? Man indeed is the center of worship, both as God and man, and continues to then draw all people to himself in order to feed them what they are to be. Yeah. Just like when you eat your dinner, you're going to be it. You're going to be it. You're going to be them Twinkies. Yeah. And not just on the side of the gut. That's going to do all sorts of fun stuff to your head. You're going to be it. Right? So when you go to feast upon the word of God and eat and drink the flesh and blood of the ever-living man, it is oriented for your good. And God enjoys giving you good. But it's not like he's like, oh man, no one's here to worship me. I feel bad today. Nope. It's more like, oh really? Y'all want to see what life's like without me? It sucks to be you. But hey, I'm merciful, so I'm actually going to put a hedge right there, and hopefully I will choose for you to bounce off it and back into salvation.
That was what was so incredible about the Psalm 73 that I was reading the other day. It was like, I don't know if I can find it fast enough, but that statement that you made where it's like, oh, you want to see what it's like without me?
Mm-hmm. No.
Unfortunate for you. Yeah.
Isaiah 9, for all this, his wrath has not stayed, his hand is outstretched still. He's like, I'm done letting you off easy with soft love. I'm gonna let the hard love come. And, but the remnant will be saved through the process. So there you go, Jake. Hope that helps with an answer. So the other thing then that I have on a card here still is, and I was so not ready for this, but it just makes so much sense now that it happened. So pet guru extraordinaire, dog guru extraordinaire Ben Austin makes his grand entrance into our house, and we're having this kind of in-home consult intervention to deal with a dog that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing he does is he asks every single person, how are you feeling right now? All 7 of us.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling right now? And if you said fine or okay, he said, give me 2 other words. Like every time if it said it's fine. No, give me 2 other words. Fine ain't a word. Fine doesn't answer the question. Fine is avoidance. No avoidance. And I thought, what came out of that was so much knowledge about where we were as a group of creatures sharing confined space.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's all about managing the calm of that confined space. Well, you can't do that if you can't know where people are, and dogs don't hide where they are.
No.
Humans do. Humans hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the question draws it out. And I just want to remember that. So I'm talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to remember that. And we've talked about this before. How are you doing? Fine. Everyone's going past each other, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that I have an intention to stop everybody I see ever and really probe into the depths of their life. But I have every intention of asking the question, how are you feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
Intentionally planning to not move away quickly so I can hear what the person says.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just genius. It's just genius.
Yeah. His question and then my response and then his response to my answer made me say, I guess I didn't realize that you actually wanted to know because I don't know you. And so I don't trust that you're truly interested in how I am feeling.
Yeah.
So I gave you a very polite answer.
Mm-hmm. But it was essential to the understanding of the dog's needs with us that he really was searching for that.
Yeah. It wasn't just a nicety.
No.
It was actually part of the day.
It's part of human communication that provides actual trust between the group, right? And so, like, to then continue that process, don't just do that once. Mm-hmm. So, how are you feeling right now?
How am I feeling? I've been battling sleepiness off and on in the morning. We had a moment this morning where we both were just like, I'm really tired and I feel like I could go back to bed. Yeah, me too. But the day was not waiting. And so we continued forward. So I'm battling that. And I think that might be where a lot of my migraines stem from. Like just the being tired and then having to push through. Like, nope, I've got to focus. I've got to keep listening and engaging. The shade on the light is super helpful.
Oh, good.
So
mine fell down, so don't look around.
Sorry if I look actually, fuzzy.
You can see it on your video. Like people can see there's a little like okay, there's a glaring thing that is a light that you can't see, but you can see the lights bouncing everywhere, and then there's this like square just kind of hanging there. Okay, so that's supposed to be taped up to make it more of a... It's
a shade.
A shade.
We could get a shade that does that. So we don't have the worry of paper falling down.
It's kind of cool. Jerry rigged.
The versatility of a 4x6 note card.
Knows no bounds.
Honestly, the other day I was like, oh, Hebron kitchen recipe book. Maybe I should make an official one that like is on the internet, and not on the internet, but like I make it on the internet and then print it out and it's all fancy. And then I was like, or I could just continue with the pattern that I'm doing, but get actual recipe cards. And then I was like, or I could just let the 4x6 note card be what it is. And,
it's glorious.
Profound
in its simplicity.
It's so simple. And that's the idea. It's like, oh, did you just make something amazing? Quick, grab a note card, write it down, throw it in the recipe box. So
yeah, or maybe there's a space for that on the memory board too, which I am definitely going to be crafting.
I don't think so, because we have a stack. Like I tried that. I tried it on the refrigerator where it was just like, oh, here, let's just put.
Have you seen my memory board? Do you know how big of a stack can fit on my memory board?
I guess I don't.
Yeah. You can have a whole square.
As the leader of the home, if that's what you would like to do with the memory board.
For teaching the memory board's purpose to the group, it might make a lot of sense to have recipes there because they have to go to it and use it then. So you have to train them to use the memory board.
Yeah.
That'll be important. So
yeah.
So you're feeling sleepy.
Yeah, I feel sleepy. So then that kind of dovetails into all these other things. So I'm tired, and so I have I have a feeling behind my eyes of overwork. I have a little bit in my brain where it's like, ooh, I've had to focus when it was tough to focus and not wander into my own brain and headspace. But
well, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I look forward to this time. I really enjoy it. So it's not something that I want to give up.
I don't think anybody wants you to give it up. Yeah. We can stop. We got 15 minutes if we don't want to stop.
I know you're not going to tell me how you're feeling. I guess I should have to ask you.
I wasn't going to just go push it
that's really
on you.
funny because I have asked that question and I just don't anymore because it's like, oh, you poor thing. I don't want to put you through that much stress.
It is often a difficult question for me because I'm a bit complex. And so my feelings rarely are straightforward. And I have a tendency to overanalyze and then hyper-verbalize my attempt to understand them or anything else.
Well, and then there was also this part in Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus that some of the young men in our community picked up on where they were like, oh, you don't ever ask a man how he feels. And it's all about doing and productivity. And I don't mean to be disrespectful with my man voice. I'm sorry.
That was the worst man voice I ever heard. Golly. Need a belch at the end of it.
So I guess I haven't like, woo, the word feeling. Ooh, I'll shy away
from
that.
I don't know that it's something you should say in passing to men at all. And that's the wisdom from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. You want a passing question, don't say how you feeling to a dude. Like say, hey, what are you doing? And I am standing with tree.
Yeah,
to cut,
that's funny.
And because we can talk about what we're doing, but to ask how you're feeling, it does take some introspection. But for family dynamics, is so valuable to know how everyone's feeling, especially if you can't tell or if you can pinpoint body language that expresses disengagement or fear or, which we both now have started tag teaming just last night at the dinner table. Like before we left, it was sort of, let's make sure each child isn't in avoidance in some way. And that happened the night before too, and led to ultimately a good conversation. But last night, and then it was after we left the table that one of the children was now in a state that needed to be, we got to address this state that this child's in. It's really obvious. You can tell how they're feeling, but sometimes you can't tell. They're just avoidant, and you have to ask.
Yeah.
So,
well, and even in that, we have to address this issue. Like, it didn't come out as fear. We had to have not a big, but it was like a conversation over multiple minutes.
Right.
That finally led to, I'm afraid of being raped.
Yeah, right.
I would never have guessed that. Okay, now though, I can deal with this and I can talk to you about it. And then this morning, I continued and said, hey, I'm so sorry that what I said caused you distress last night at the table. I don't want to cause you distress. And please forgive me for not being more aware of what my words were doing. And her response was, oh, Mother, I forgive you. It's really weird because it's not always like that. That specific subject that tipped me over doesn't always tip me over. And oftentimes I join in and find it funny. But for whatever reason, last night,
it didn't.
I wasn't in that space.
Yeah.
And it was more or less because of the overwhelm of other, like multiple events just leading to exhaustion. And then the exhaustion dovetailing into her fear, her deep down fear, and then that all surfacing. So
yeah, it's when your energy level is low, your filters don't function the same way.
Yeah,
both in and out.
The book that I read recently called Fruit of Her Hands, she talks about this as specifically for women. Like at 11 p.m., do not start psychoanalyzing your motherhood. It just isn't the time.
No, that's right. That's right. It's time to ponder the Proverbs you read earlier today and crash down. So you asked me how I'm feeling.
Yes, how are you feeling?
And I have not answered. I am feeling ready for the show to be over. Keenly aware that it's Saturday, which means that I get like a little lull followed by the highest intensity I have in fear and experience, which is going to work, going to church. And I'm pretty practiced at it, so no one can tell usually, but I am in terror. Yeah. And that's exhausting. It is utterly exhausting. So I'm not exhausted, but I know I will be in 4 hours. And that's a horrible feeling. But that's where it is. But I'm also thankfully kind of excited that I got a puppy to distract me a little bit, and I got another puppy who wants to go buy a knife. That I could maybe take the puppies together. Yep, and I'm not sure though, because usually trying to fit stuff in between now and church is always a bit challenging, but it's not too far to Blaine. So thinking about that, excited that my son wants me to do that with him. Absolutely. Even if we were to do it tomorrow instead. Definitely want to keep reading my Hebron style Horner method lectionary today. I've only got about halfway, not even quite halfway through it. So excited about those things, but also again, like pre-exhausted. Yeah. Aware of the coming exhaustion. And so then just kind of soul weary.
We have another daughter who does that actually with jujitsu and gets soul weary over the coming of jujitsu.
Is this our eldest?
And I my question is, so do you need to take a break? No. Like, definitely doesn't want it to end.
Oh.
So how, and in this instance, with you getting so soul weary over church, it's hard because I look forward to it. I'm like, yay! It's kind of like the preview of Sunday morning on Saturday night, because it's a shortened service and everything's just abbreviated that much. And so I go with the attitude of, okay, this is a foretaste of the feast to come, and get really excited about it. And then to know, though, that I'm getting excited over something that causes so much pain. Like, I just don't know.
But I'm there on purpose, and I've chosen to be there, and my desire to be there is greater than my terror. Not just because it pays the bills. I mean, that there's that whole side of it, but more so because I am truly convicted that this is the life of the world. And so I'm willing to walk through that fire. So what matters more to me would be compassion, than not guilt that I'm in a bad spot, but compassion that would see that spot and build up, lift up, which you do, although I don't know that you always feel like that's what you're doing. Yeah,
because the responses coming back are kind of like, oh yeah, that wasn't helpful.
No, the responses are just he's still
so
in.
I guess
he's still in fight or flight, and so he's on hyper. Which person's going to come talk to me next? So I'm ready to be nice and listen and discern what on earth they're talking about, because it can be all. No offense to any of you who I love that are watching that come to my church. I'm maybe not even thinking about you, so don't think that I am.
Yeah,
it is from left field so many times. It is left field, and you got to care. And so I'm on alert for that, which is where, again, if you just come and stand beside me and put your arm or your hand on my elbow, I don't necessarily go, thank you so much for doing that. That made me feel better.
Or you don't even notice that I do it. Because it's such, like the focus is so taken.
Or I don't show a sign that I notice. I don't show a sign that I notice, or I don't show a sign that you are able to see yet. I'm pretty sure I notice. It doesn't necessarily change my state, but I'd like it to. And that's what I think that the process of going to church, for me is a continual practice ground for maturing. And now the information that I have from my keen friend, what was it? My familiar, my little familiar Aurelius, that I just get to go practice that tonight. So I'm excited about that, because I like the way that human interaction can be when you know how to think like a dog. I don't know. That's so weird. That's just so weird. But it really is.
What does that mean? Thinking like a dog?
All the stuff from the start of the show. But trust is surrender. You're either in control or being controlled. And that, my task as the shepherd is actually to be in control. You're coming to me to surrender to what I say, even if it's just, the peace of the Lord be with you. Like, you're looking for that, and
it's very important to them,
and to believe that, and that mastery gives joy. I didn't have a way to see that before.
Yeah,
right. I didn't have a way to see that before, and Ben talked about like that. This is so weird, but I get it now. He's like, I want the dog to bite me. That's weird. Why does he want the dog to bite me? Because the dog's going to lose. And when the dog loses, the dog's going to be the closest thing to being happy that dog's ever going to be. He's going to go from being aggressive and forward and on and afraid. The dog that's attacking is afraid, to being calm and submissive and following.
Yeah.
And that is joy. He called it joy. And it's like, you know what? It is. And it's joy to give it. It's joy to be the master. Yeah.
Right. Because you finally, so he kept talking to the dog and saying, let it out. Let it out. And so he's saying, in biting him, the dog is able to let out this pent up intuition. I don't know. Instinct. And then let in the calm that would come. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. And so you as pastor, even when the comment comes from left field, you're the constant in their life. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, hey pastor, I've got this thing that's bugging me. And so I'm going to just put it on you because I know that you are going to love me anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I trust that you won't give up on me, even if I'm really out of line and weird. Yeah. It's that moment of vulnerability. Like they're giving you vulnerability and not pretending with you. And that little square on your throat, like totally opens you up to people's inner thoughts. And sometimes they're not pretty.
No. So kind of excited about that role, even though the pre-exhaustion is something I've never been able to get rid of.
My reason for bringing up our daughter is like, how do I help her through that?
You let her keep going, and
just so you're saying touch your elbow, so maybe just a hug at that moment.
Yeah, right.
Which is usually what we do, but I don't realize that it's helping that
psychological, much. It's helping a ton. I got a hair like suddenly in my face. Psychological, emotional support. Think like the buttress on a cathedral.
Yeah.
Like the cathedral's not like looking down at the buttress. It's just being held up.
Right.
Okay. So you're coming along, and that touch, it pushes up. Even if the person's not cognizant enough to be like, thank you. So I would say, just bolster. Woman is made to help, right? Mm-hmm. This is it. You help by standing beside. And so to do that to your children, you help by standing behind your children, right? And that means they know you're there. So.
Yeah, that was something I read in James Dobson. You keep looking at the time. Are you getting nervous?
I just looked at the time for the first time in 15 minutes. What are you talking about?
15 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's 12:01.
Okay.
We had 15 minutes, and I was like, I wonder what time it is.
James Dobson talks about how important it is for parents to be around when their kids are in high school. And oftentimes you think about like, I'm going to stay home while my children are young, and then once they get older, I'll go and get a job. Well, he talks about how important it is for a high schooler to be able to come home to a waiting parent. Mm-hmm. And how grounding that is for them, even if they don't say, hey, thanks for the support. No. Exactly what you were saying, like coming up behind them gives them the confidence to continue on and continue facing all the struggles, because it's emotionally challenging. It's physically challenging to be a teen. Like we don't recognize how hard that growing period is for our kids. Mm-hmm. It's almost as tough, if not tougher, than the infancy. Like the amount of growing they're doing and developing they're doing in their teenage years is super significant, but it's on a hormonal level. I mean, with boys, sometimes you see it because they grow super fast. Mm-hmm. And so they're physically illustrating how much they're growing. But for girls, sometimes the growth is more quiet and inside their body. So you can't see where those 12 hours of sleep that they're craving and needing are actually going. But yeah, that being the bolster for your teen is just as important as being the bolster for your toddler who's learning to walk for the first time on their little wobbly legs. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's good. That's good. We need each other. Yeah, that's what a community is. That's what a family is, and interconnected nodes, but not machine creatures sharing space.
Absolutely.
And we are always, when we're in the same space, exerting a pressure, a force on those around us. So is that force for calm? Is that force for self-indulgence? Right? And parents are given to be the force for calm in the home so that the home can surrender to God, live in trust, and enjoy the gifts that we've been given, of which life is all of it. Yeah. So you can find more at RevFisk.com, RevFisk.com, including how to support the show. You can do that also by going to subscribestar.com/RevFisk or patreon.com/RevFisk. We're thankful for all of you this year who have been supporting us, making it possible for the world to spin around Rockford, Illinois, and have the Hebron Collegium be getting in action here, have Brief History of Power continue to grow as a podcast, having Mad Mondays continue to be something that's out there, madpxm.com, as a news source for discernment of the times. All of that you make possible by supporting us at these two spots. So thank you for that. It is New Year's Eve.
It is. Yeah. I was just thinking, oh, wow. We had our anniversary. We had New Year's Eve today.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a big deal for a lot of people. I'm not a New Year's Eve believer. I don't believe it's New Year's Eve. I don't believe in the religion of the new year.
Well, isn't January 1st the naming and circumcision of Christ? I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal.
It's the first time he shed blood for us.
Amen. Yes. He is, that's there, although we're not really focusing on that at St. Paul this week. We're focusing on a day that happened midweek this week called Holy Innocents.
Ah, yes.
And we're going to emphasize like the counterpart to All Saints Day, which is the unborn.
Yeah.
And
amen.
And so, but yes, the circumcision and naming of Jesus is definitely January 1st, which is why all young pastors come out and they try to turn New Year's Eve service into the circumcision and naming of Jesus service, and the previous generation sits there and kind of just looks at you funny and is like, well, that was all right, Pastor. Thank you for being here. and they take it, but they're all confused by it. And because you're fighting against a very public religion, and the New Year's spiritual experience of death and renewal, meaning I'm going to justify myself by what I do differently now.
Yeah.
It's pretty potent. It's pretty potent stuff, and a lot of people, Christians included, just run with it. And you can eat the meat eat the meat bought at the market. Just sometimes you maybe shouldn't. And so let that be what it is on this New Year's Eve, so-called 2023, about to begin, whatever that means. Our numbering system's off. Jesus was born at a different time than we thought he was. And so how many years has it been? I don't know. Millions, billions of years. And it's 2023. Common era. Oh, okay. When did that start? When Jesus was born? Oh, really? Well, 5 years off. But yeah. Anyway. So, those of you out there that are praying for our country and for the future, today's a good day to do that.
Amen.
Yeah, and tomorrow. So recognizing that. And from our family to yours, we'll catch y'all on the other side of this thing. Yeah. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you have been paid for. That makes you immortal now. And he's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity. You should join us. Don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope. Stop the white noise. You found it with Jonathan and Meredith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meredith.
Lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching. Rock on. And I'm not ready for it. Hallelujah.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?